Soundboard.
Did you guys notice that D&D was labeled as Fantastic Four on the Instagram?
Go to hell.
Am I wrong? I didn't know there was an inside joke I missed.
This week on the show, we're celebrating the first annual 3D Awards by giving out 12 different awards in 12 different categories. Don't like them? Let us know in the comments. It's time for Nerd It Here Weekly. Bruno, do the thing. Welcome to Nerd It Here Weekly, the only show that has enough gall to give out its own awards, despite the fact that it wasn't really paying attention too much this year. As always, and I mean always, I'm joined by Chief Film Critic Deepak Chitnis.
I'm still recovering from that sweet baby making music.
Our site's General Manager, Fred Neighbor.
I'm managing the generals. They're doing all right.
The spirit that we have encased inside of 12 different golden trophies, Jackson Trahan.
Hey!
And on the ones and twos, as always, contributing his opinions to this season's awards, it is Bruno Meneses. Thanks, Bruno, for being with us this week.
I'm not used to being here, but howdy, y'all.
Hey, well, listen, we need all hands on deck while we are considering what different stories, titles, news events, games, all the different hoopla deserve our recognition for this season's awards. We have 12 different categories. We have 5 nominees for each one. If everybody gets a minute, we're already running behind. So let's jump in right away by starting with the best streaming thing. Our nominees are Beef, Blue Eye Samurai, Columbo, Fall of the House of Usher, and Ted Lasso. All right, so I want to start first, and my nominee in this category was Beef. I don't know if most of y'all watch Beef, but it was a Netflix original series featuring Ali Wong and is it Stephen
Yeun.
Stephen Yeun, yeah. Voice of Invincible. And
who I was just remembering last night watching the Golden Globes that he got his started in Walking Dead, which I would not have necessarily remembered in a vacuum. But I just thought this series was so good. I thought it tackled so many deep and complicated issues that are like inherent to just sort of like existing today. I thought like the way it dealt with really raw and real emotion was really affecting, and I really enjoyed it as a series. So I wanted to throw Beef out there as the best thing I watched on streaming this year. But Deepak, what did you have?
I had Columbo. This is not some new fangled reboot. This is just old-fashioned Peter Falk playing Columbo. As I enter my dad era, I've really started loving old TV shows, Miami Vice and so on and so forth, those kinds of things from the 80s and 70s. And I discovered Columbo on Peacock. Hold that thought for another category down the road. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's really interesting. Mysteries, of course, the pilot episode. We talked about this in a previous episode, but I was stunned to find out that the pilot was directed by some up-and-comer named Steven Spielberg, and from there I was hooked. It only somehow even gets better from there. I haven't finished all the episodes yet, but Poker Face on Peacock, I've caught a couple episodes of, and that pays a lot of homage to Columbo. Rian Johnson is obviously a big fan of the show. And you can see a little bit of the influence and stuff like Knives Out and Glass Onion. But
I was going to say, I definitely think fans of the Knives Out movies and Poker Face will appreciate checking in with Columbo. I think that'll be big. Yeah.
And the Blu-ray set just came out from Kino. They've done 4K restorations on all the episodes, and I don't have it, but I've seen images and it looks great.
All right, Fred, what you got?
Yeah, so Ted Lasso had its conclusion season 3 this year, and it was incredible. I like it is a branch off of normal sports types of TV stuff. I don't say it's about soccer; it just features soccer. But I think it's an incredible story about people, incredible story about relationships, incredible story about how to handle difficult things. Jason Sudeikis does an amazing job as the titular Ted Lasso. It's wild to think this came off of just some one-off commercial for the Super Bowl a long time ago.
It was for the World Cup.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
World
it
Cup
was because I
didn't know
remember
that.
it was the year. I don't know if y'all remember, but it was the year. I'll remove my cap real quick because well, this is a relevant part of the story, but it was the year that because we all know about Cristiano Ronaldo now, right? He's the big Ronaldo. But back in the day, there was a Ronaldo on the Brazilian team, and he had a haircut where only like from here back was shaved, and then right here where you would sort of take the header, he had a little pad of hair.
That's why you did that?
And yeah, Fred remembers this from being on the swim team. Yeah, when Brazil won the World Cup, I got that same haircut. But that was that year, and the whole bit Jason Sudeikis did was he was on NBC as a World Cup host who was like, I know about football. Oh no, I know about the wrong football.
Yeah, it was hilarious. And someone liked it well enough to build a show around this commercial, and
it turns out they were a genius.
yeah. So Brett Goldstein does a great job as not only playing Roy Kent, but he's also a writer for the show. I think he did a tremendous job.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people might not be satisfied with this ending, but I think it's a very real and honest look at life, and I really like that about TV. So as far as TV shows go, I think this was an incredible last season, just a great send-off.
People who were upset about the ending weren't paying attention.
I agree.
Jackson?
Yeah, so I went ahead with Blue Eye Samurai, which is probably the newest thing on this list. It came out in November, but I am obsessed with it. I've watched it through twice, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's wonderful samurai drama. You get to watch people get cut in half. And it's very historically based. It's set in Japan's isolationist period, and its protagonist, as the title implies, has blue eyes because they're half white, which is almost illegal in and of itself. So I really like it, and if you are at all interested in the samurai genre as a whole, I would strongly recommend you check it out. I think it's a very good addition.
No, it is
incredible. That's a really good star cast, too.
It is an incredible watch. Also, the animation is gorgeous on that. I'm surprised.
Kenneth Branagh is the bad guy. He's the white man in Japan.
It's Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
George Takei is like a wise old assistant to Brenda Song from Disney Channel fame, who comes in as a princess. Yeah,
Social
a lot
Network.
of fun. A lot of fun voice actors.
That's great.
I didn't know Kenneth Branagh was in it. I'm gonna have to finish this out. I saw the first episode. It was great.
Yeah, he gets to be Irish. Happy for
He
him.
is Irish.
Exactly. Now he gets to act Irish.
And then Bruno, what you got?
So you guys already like. There's been times that I've been on the camera before, and anytime I've talked about this show, it's The Fall of the House of Usher.
Hey,
Mike Flanagan's latest project, his exit from Netflix. I was a little bit skeptical going into it, just given how Midnight Club came out, but man, he came back and he came back swinging, and this was great all around, not only in terms of horror, but in terms of just being a family drama. Cinematography and setting is just perfect as always. I mean, yeah, what more can I say? Fall of the House of Usher.
Bruce Greenwood is so good in this.
It is incredible that you
Absolutely.
know the ending going in, and you're still like, hooked, right? Like it was a.
Well, and this is the thing I've said before, Fred, and the thing I really stand by, and one of the reasons I think all of his stuff is so great, right? Whether it's the movie stuff, right? Like
Dr. Sleep.
Thank you. Jack, I couldn't think of Dr. Sleep. I was like, the Shining sequel. Yeah. Whether it's something like Dr. Sleep or something like the Netflix stuff, right? I think you can say every single beat of the story. It doesn't affect how you perceive it at all, because like sitting through it, you're like, just the whole way through, right?
It's not scary. It's just intense, and it's
just
so character focused, and it's so well acted, and the technical work is so good.
Yes.
I thought it was maybe like an episode too long, but other than that, it was really good.
Yeah, no, I just think Flanagan's stuff is consistently like experience based, not like like plot based. Like you can know the plot, but watching it is so much more. Okay, so this is the first of so many times during this episode that we are going to remind you that you can head to NIHF.com and vote for which of the 5 nominees you just heard that you think deserve this year's 3B. So head over to NIHF.com. Theoretically, you should be able to dial up the poll in your show notes, but if not, we'll have a link there hopefully. But let us know what you think deserves to win. Please, please, please give us votes. We would be, and I can't express this clearly enough, so embarrassed if nobody voted for our awards. So please hop over to the link and let us know so that we at least can announce some winners in the coming weeks. Our next category in the first year of the 3Ds is going to be animation. This is best animation of the year. I can't help but notice that somebody that just threw up an anime series didn't have the balls to nominate it a second time, but that's fine. We're going to start with Deepak.
Mine was the Super Mario Brothers movie. It totally came out of nowhere. This little sleeper indie project that no one had really heard of. No, I'm joking. We all know what Mario is. We were all kind of trepidatious about it because of the Chris Pratt of it all and the movie with Bob Hoskins 30 years ago and Nintendo playing very precious with the IP. And it turns out it was great. It didn't really reinvent the wheel. It didn't really do anything we didn't expect it to, Jack's bobblehead thing notwithstanding. And it ended up being really fun and really bright and colorful. And I had a blast with it. I've seen it twice this year. Could not recommend it more highly. I think it might be the most entertaining video game movie we've made yet. I feel like I say that with every new video game movie.
They pulled the like side scroller bit like very well, and they didn't overdo it.
That's part of the movie.
But they kept. I like.
It happens like 10 minutes into it.
I liked the Mario Kart aspect. I liked Mario Kart. I thought that was fun.
I will be the great unifier here and say that I think that the movie. I totally agree with everything Deepak said. I think it was surprising. I think it was entertaining. I think it was fun. I think there was something for everyone available in that movie. I think the visual language of it was authentic to a universal Mario experience, whether you were someone who joined during the SNES era or someone who joined during the Switch era, right? Like I think the movie was widely appealing to all audiences. And I think one of the things that made it most appealing to all audiences was this way that it looked at, all different types of video game experiences and said, we're going to honor all of these in a way that everyone will recognize, right? So that like even during the fanfare, right, when it did like the Nintendo fanfare and it had the highly pixelated Mario Brothers run out and go like boop and like hit the thing and run off, like that was like in my opinion, a tip of the hat to SNES or NES players being like, hey, you're not going to literally get what you're looking for here, but we could make our, in a similar way that in the early days of Marvel, they made their fanfare a comic book page literally flipping. It felt to me like Nintendo was trying to like tip their hat to the old school and say like, we see you and we are honoring you. And I do think for folks like you and me, Fred, the side scroller, platformy bit, really, probably hit very firmly. Pardon me, you were not on my side on this at all. Fuck you, get out of here. But then Fred, for people like you big dumb idiot, there was the Mario Kart sequence.
I said both were cool. I liked both. I liked both of those things. I just said it wasn't the best movie.
Is your nomination Mario Bros. Movie also? Because you're really going to bat for it.
I liked it.
I feel like you're making my case better than I did.
I liked it a lot, and the whole point of this format is that there are no overlaps. So I just wanted to also go to bat for it because I thought it was a great movie. It's one of the highest rated movies I have this year overall, not just amongst animation. I thought it did a good job of reaching all the audiences.
Yeah.
And it's going to win the Oscar for best song, so watch out.
I have stuff to add, but I'll wait for another category since Riley took most of that time.
Well, but this is the whole thing. I don't think Mario's coming back. So if you got it, throw it out now.
Oh no, he's coming back.
All right. Well, Fred, what you got?
Fred?
Yeah, sorry. I was just waiting for the next movie. So my nomination for this category was actually the series finale rather of Attack on Titan.
Finally.
Yeah, I know. After so many years, we had Mappa came in and took over when the original series was canceled, and I could not be more thankful that they did. This anime does an incredibly wild and weird thing with time that's just so absolutely bizarre, mind-boggling. It's hard to even describe it, but it's what an ending, right? So I don't know how much into spoiler territory we are getting here. Having
I think if you are watching to or listening to this show, you are expecting that we are spoiling the things we are talking about. They are listed in the show notes if you are not sure. Deepak's giving us dirty looks. We're not going to say this is everything that happens, but we are going to talk about the stuff.
The stuff that we're here to talk about, yeah.
I think that there's the big thing was the main antagonist of the entire series forcing the second main antagonist who is in love with him to kill him at the end to save the world. It doesn't make sense hearing it out of context, and then you watch the show and you see the downfall of our protagonist, and it just comes out into this incredible thing. And I thought it was great.
Well, I was going to watch it, but
you should still watch it.
Now, fuck you, says Deepak.
Now what's the point? Now that it's finally done, maybe I'll go back into it.
All right, Jackson, what you got?
Oh, well, I took Scavenger's Reign by Max. Scavenger's Reign is an animated sci-fi drama about a crew of a spaceship who gets stranded on an alien moon and have to sort of navigate their way back through a very strange ecosystem that is animated with a kind of fidelity and imagination that is hard to describe. It's deeply unsettling at times. There are creatures that exist in beautiful symbiotic relationships, and there's at the same time tremendous cruelty. It feels a lot like some of the praise that people often levy to Avatar and its alien world, but rendered in two-dimensional animation, which I think lets them do a lot wackier stuff, and it leans more into the sci-fi of it all. Like, there's a creature that will hypnotize other creatures and make them do whatever it wants, and in the first episode, it gets one of the crew to do whatever it wants for it. And you see that from the crewmate's perspective, which is very strange, and how he gets tricked into thinking he's doing things for his own good.
Is it like a comedy?
It's really actually alien in an unsettling way. So I'd highly recommend it. In terms of the thing whose animation impressed me the most, it was definitely this. I do have other animated things in other categories, thank you, which I do think might have told a better story. But this one was the most impressive thing to watch.
All right. With that, we're going to go to Bruno. Remember, this is one of your first tryouts as on-air talent. Please don't suggest that anyone might have any sort of romantic relationship with any piece of furniture as you present your nomination for Best Animation this year. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you really think I wasn't going to talk about that, you'd be very
wrong.
No! My pick this year is Suzume no Tojimare, which just translates to Suzume's Locking Up. It is Makoto Shinkai's latest movie, and it is amazing, start to finish. When just based on Weathering with You and Your Name, you thought he couldn't get the animation better, but he does. He focuses a lot more on the water animations here, which is just a beauty to behold. He does a really good job with facial expressions. There's this one character that I'm not going to directly name that, for a majority of the movie, I pretty much hated. And then at one point, they did this one like facial transition, which made me do a complete 180 and must protect him at all costs. And then, just the last thing, which I think was just very interesting and really funny about the movie, and sort of reference to what Riley was mentioning earlier, is that um, Shinkai wanted to kind of like step away from having a romantic duo leading the movie and lean more towards like a sisterly duo, but the studio still wanted like a romance lead. And so he essentially went, "Huh, fine, I'll just turn him into a chair."
What?
And that's
It all
usually
makes sense now.
Yeah, definitely check it out. They're all, I mean, all of this stuff is gorgeous, but
There were posters for
haven't
this
seen it.
all over London when I was there back in like March.
Mm.
It still
Mhm.
got by me somehow.
I'm here to talk about Hayao Miyazaki's masterpiece, The Boy and the Heron. Listen, here's the thing. We all thought Hayao was out the game. And there was good reason to think Hayao was out the game. He's an old man.
You
And
keep saying he's out the
whether
game.
who continues to insist that
yeah,
he's
who
is the game.
personally says, "I am leaving the game now. Goodbye."
but then he can't resist it, and he comes back over and over. And I listen, do I think this is a film that is on the level of Spirited Away? No, I don't.
Okay, but
That would be a silly thing to say. Spirited Away is a once in a generation masterpiece. Do I think this movie is perfect and speaks to the human condition in so many ways? Yeah, absolutely I do. I have a like cosmic brain ideology take on this movie that I would be happy to get into in like a nerd out that was all about Hayao Miyazaki or something. But I really think that this, we talked so many times throughout the course of the year about how Do You Live was sort of a or pardon me, The Wind Rises. This was a film that was supposed to be called How Do You Live? The Wind Rises was supposed to be this, sort of final treatise on his career, etc. And he had sort of changed many of the final lines from, things like "it's time to die" to "it's time to live," etc. And this movie feels like it's much more sort of a celebratory final note on Miyazaki's career that is more like, look at everything that I've done over the course of the time that I've been here, and celebrate it and embrace your own ability to be a person, who can be anyone you want in your own story. And I really feel like that is sort of where this movie comes down in a lot of ways, and I loved it for that. So yeah, Boy and the Heron was my nominee.
I have yet to watch this movie, but I'm very excited to see it, and even more so after seeing all of the comments on Robert Pattinson's performance in it.
Is he the boy or the heron?
He is the bird.
of course he is.
All right. Well, next up, we are moving on to biggest disappointment. And for biggest disappointment, we are going to start with Fred.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment was the death of E3. And look, it was a long time coming, but I've always enjoyed E3. I've always liked watching the fun trailers that came out for the new movies or new video games that are coming out during E3. I always like the fun software tests for E3.
Some of them were more like movies, though. Am I right? Wow.
But yeah, no. So E3 finally done. RIP 2023.
All right.
Yeah, but like
Jackson.
only kind of technically, right?
I mean, well, but it did the same thing that streaming did, right? Where like E3 was the consolidated, everything came here, and now everyone's got their own.
Yeah, that is true. I just don't know how disappointed I was by it in 2023. It was more like, oh, that took a while.
Right, yeah, it was drawn
a
out, but I
long
mean,
struggle.
2023.
Well,
Got it.
Jack, what was your biggest
There it is.
disappointment then, if it wasn't the death of E3?
My biggest disappointment, Riley, you were there for it, was Rebel Moon Part 1 : A Child of Fire.
I was there for it.
I'm sorry, it's got a colon and a hyphen in the title.
I know, I was so
I think it's
optimistic.
colon then hyphen. Yeah.
I might have gotten it backwards, but very few
Everyone
movies
knows you
I
have
think it's colon then semicolon.
whatever.
I can't have both.
Very few movies. Hold on, I will look it up. But in the meanwhile,
It's colon.
not a lot of
Mine
movies
was an
have.
anatomical joke.
The only one that gets hyphen then colon is Spider-Man, and we all know.
Let's
that
just let him tell us things about the movie. Jack, go ahead.
Mission Impossible had colon hyphen comma.
Too much punctuation.
Very few movies have made me dislike other movies more because of how bad they are. But this is one of them, because I feel like I understand why people don't like the Justice League more now that I've watched this movie, which was basically the same story, but not without characters that I recognized, and so I didn't care as much. This is perhaps compounded by the fact that there's 2 more hours of this movie apparently coming, and an R-rated director's cut on April 14th, when Rebel Moon, I have it now, hyphen, it's 2 hyphens, Part 1, Part 2, the Scargiver, gets released.
Part
So
two,
that'll
two
be exciting.
hyphens.
I don't.
They add a hyphen for each part. Yeah.
I don't.
That might just be this one person, but that would be incredible. If it was 4 hyphens by the end.
Oh god.
An
Right,
R-rated
what do you
extended cut. That girl's definitely getting actually sexually assaulted in that version. Spoilers, I guess.
Jesus.
I don't know why they just didn't release the R-rated cut to begin with. It's Netflix. It's not like it's
Right.
going to
The
theater.
very first
No, it's
one.
got to be
Right? They're just trying to-
PG-13,
they're just trying to
baby.
milk it for all it's worth, I guess.
Why?
Fair enough.
It's not. Was Netflix profit off ticket sales?
Yeah,
now?
to release it twice
Hey,
because it's Zack
1
Snyder, and
minute
now
per category, Bruno.
Per category or per nominee?
I assume per nominee.
Nominee, but either way.
Anyways, my pick for this year on biggest disappointment is just being an animator in general. There's a few things that I want to reference here. First off, there was just the Across the Spider-Verse development where we had a couple of whistleblowers come out with that article that was just titled "Death of 1,000 Paper Cuts."
Yeah.
Which also like opened the floodgates to us hearing about all of the delays that Beyond the Spider-Verse was going to be getting, which I'll be talking about later on. There was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animators, where like under Seth Rogen, they were actually treated very well, which should not be an
That was a big
accomplishment.
novelty.
It should
Yeah.
not be an accomplishment. Lastly, which Fred already talked about, there was Studio Mappa. They had a heavy year this year with Attack on Titan's latest season, and then they were being just pushed to the brink on overtime with Jujutsu Kaisen, to the point that there were times that they were finishing the episodes like hours before it was released. And even like after all of that struggle and stuff like that, Studio Mappa decided to announce like 3 new anime projects for next year. So yeah, it's not looking too good if you're an animator. Like marketing wise, it's going great. Actual like working conditions, I'm not so sure.
Especially challenging, right, Deepak, when so many other portions of the film industry are having such profound union power right now, right? The fact that animators are still struggling the way that they are just seems challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if that goes to a larger issue of animation generally being kind of seen as the ugly stepchild or the black sheep of filmmaking in general. But that's a separate conversation, maybe.
That does lead like a side dumb question that I had earlier that I never meant to ask. Are animators included with visual effect artists when they're like recently getting unionized?
No, visual effects animators are a separate kind of wing of their own.
Fair enough.
So for me, I appreciated a lot of y'all taking, and I'll pass off to Deepak here, who's also going to take a bigger kind of philosophical position here. But I was more on line with Jack. My biggest disappointment of the year was Fast X, a movie that seems to almost exclusively be a product of contract obligations, mostly in which no one wants to be in a scene with Vin anymore. Just like watching this movie, if you have been following the Fast saga, then surely you are one of the many who, and if you haven't done this, I encourage you to watch. Jack, help me out here. Is it Fast 8? The final movie that Vin and The Rock are in together, in which during a hospital scene, it's 8. During the scene in which Vin visits The Rock in the hospital, you can pause the scene and you will see that the hospital blinds do not match up on the left and right side of the room. And that is because Vin and The Rock would not be in the same room as each other because they hated each other so much. And this scene had to sort of be composited together from left and right portions. This is a movie made up entirely from that philosophy.
I think that was 7.
You think that's 7? Okay.
7?
These guys are professionals. That's unacceptable, I think, right? Like,
do yourself a Google. Well, it's just because the Venetian.
Vin Diesel is famously not very professional.
Yeah, now everybody is just done with Vin,
money,
and this is an entire movie that is just made up of people not wanting to be in the same scene as Vin, and it is wildly funny to see how the studio deals with this. We remember, of course, the Justin Lin hostage video earlier in the year, where Lin was like, "Yeah, we're all on set."
This is the one that he walked off. He was done.
Yeah,
they got the Incredible Hulk director to come.
That's what I'm saying. This was the result of that terrible situation, and for how much it was hyped as like the beginning of the end, and now of course they're talking 10 part 3 and a Hobbs and Shaw spinoff and maybe an 11, etc. So I'm just rolling my eyes and being disappointed by Fast X over here. But Deepak, you've got, I think, probably the trump card.
Don't call it that.
Not literally.
Not literally.
Okay. I mean,
yeah, my biggest disappointment of the year was just Jonathan Majors. From the initial leaks that he may have been involved in a domestic altercation of some kind, to then going to, I think it was a civil trial. It's not criminal. He won't be going to jail, but of course he was convicted, or at least found guilty or found liable for inflicting violence and or abuse on his ex-girlfriend, Grace Jabari, at least once, if not multiple times. Leaked text messages that are obviously have lent some sort of insight into his inflated ego. Things along the lines of "I am a great man," and basically also being kind of a manipulative abuser in many ways. On top of it all, it almost seems beside the point to mention that his actual movies disappointed. I've not seen Creed 3. I've been led to believe that that's a decent movie, but I don't think it did particularly well. Of course, the big one was Ant-Man 3, which did not do well critically or commercially. And now, of course, with the fallout of his, the judicial issues, he's now been let go as Kang. All indications at the moment seem to be that Marvel is just going to drop Kang altogether. So the great and powerful Kang the Conqueror was defeated by Ant-Man in the MCU. So, of course, none of that really matters. But just the biggest disappointment, of course, is this guy who started, a few years ago with The Last Black Man in San Francisco and Defy Bloods as being potentially one of the new, real, great, up-and-coming stars, literal stars in Hollywood. And it has flamed out very, very quickly. It's almost got this Nate Parker quality to it, another kind of disappointing African-American flame out from the recent past. It's a shame.
So,
it's really a bad situation.
Yeah. So nominees for the biggest disappointment are Being an Animator, Death of E3, Fast X, Jonathan Majors, or Rebel Moon. Next category here that we have is the nominees for the best superhero story. Just like every other category this week, you can head over to NIHF.com and leave your votes. Please head over to NIHF.com and leave your votes if you're listening to this. Again, we're going to announce the winner soon. We don't want to have like a winner that only got 3 votes. We know how many people listen to this show. If you're listening to this show, please go vote for the winner. It would make us so happy to have your vote. And in this category for best superhero story, I believe we are going to begin with Jackson Trahan.
Oh, all right. I took the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. What a reasonable amount of punctuation. This was a movie that came out this summer. Riley, I think you're a pretty big fan.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Sort of following in this animation style that is becoming increasingly popular since films like the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or the Puss in Boots movie, of all things, started to popularize it a bit more.
This was a great movie.
Very avant-garde animation style.
This is a sort of reboot for the Turtles, for the new generation, for the Zoomers. And I thought it was pretty effective. I really liked Jackie Chan as our rat dad. And I thought it looked fun. I liked the action. You know, that's one of the things that this style does really well, is a lot of dynamic movements and camera panning and things, which fits the ninja style very well. Yeah, I don't know. It's not the deepest thing in the world. I just thought it was fun. And I didn't like a lot of the other things that came out of more traditional superhero stories, and they're technically in a comic book, so I took it.
No, I mean, look, ninja shows are supposed to be fun, and this movie definitely accomplished that. And I thought it was great. My son and I both loved it. So
I watched
really
that movie.
enjoyed setting.
I watched that movie more times than I thought I'd ever would. Like maybe even more than Across the Spider-Verse.
I really enjoyed them kind of gearing those characters as modern teens. I saw it in the trailer, and I thought that would be really effective. And then seeing in the movie, it was even more effective than I thought it was going to be. So that was something that I really was excited.
They're actual Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. You telling me you got your asses kicked by full-grown mutant Ninja Turtles?
There's also a lot of famous people in that one too, right?
Yeah, a lot of names, including Mr. Jackie Chan.
But, John Cena is one of the baddies.
Like Paul
Maya
Rudd,
Rudolph,
Spencer.
Yeah,
Paul Rudd
Ice
is
Cube.
great in that movie. The Gecko is so good.
Oh yeah.
What was your biggest superhero?
Is that Paul Rudd's best superhero movie last year?
Yes, it is. I lost brain cells in it.
Go ahead, Bruno.
My best superhero story this year may be a little bit of a cheat because it involves a couple different comic book runs. It's the Energon universe from Image Comics. I actually have a couple issues here with me, but like this is mainly run by this run from Robert Kirkman, Void Rivals, and you guys already know Robert Kirkman. He's the creator of Invincible and The Walking Dead, and what he did here is really great in that it's like just a universe taken centuries into the future, but like in a universe where like present time was affected by the existence of Transformers and G.I. Joe, and he has some very interesting takes that like is very good. But like what I like most about this whole universe is the actual like Transformers comics, which is from Daniel Warren Johnson, one of my new favorite artists. He's been like touching a lot specifically on the G1 Transformers, which is what I grew up on, making a lot of references to the 1986 movie, and I don't know, I just really, really like it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I saw you throw this out for nomination, and I thought I really wanted to dig into this one. So I'm
shocked that this was not right. Like I just saw a comic story, and I was like, "Oh, that's got to be Riley."
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
One last detail that I just want to point out from the Transformers comic book in general is that it's very like adult oriented to the point that the Decepticons create a slur against the humans that we've all just been waiting years to hear. It's squishy. They call them squishies. because they can
That's
just
funny.
pick
You guys
them
have
up
a,
and
you
just.
you have a bleep button up there, right?
That's
Yeah, we don't want to
horrid.
offend.
For me, my best superhero story of the year was Marvel's Spider-Man 2 on PS5.
Hey, you love this game.
I did love this game. I mean, for me, my love of Spider-Man just as an IP is deeply based uh in the villains of that universe, right? I love so many of the Spider-Man villains, and this game not only front and centers Craven and Venom, who are two all-time Spider-Man villains for me, but it also teases multiple Green Goblins. It puts you face to face with multiple other Spider-Man villains, including Mysterio and Black Cat and Scorpion. Um, yeah, there's just a lot of Spider-Man on show here. The map is so much bigger than the first Spider-Man game. Just as a video game, I feel like, I mean, we've talked about this before, even insofar as Deepak, who is not a real modern video game person, has been like, oh, I remember that back in the day, that Spider-Man game that let you swing around, right? And this
Mhm.
is the same lineage as that, right? It just keeps getting better. And
Mhm.
and for me, it just
That was
keeps getting
also
better.
Spider-Man 2.
So yeah,
It
exactly.
was, yeah.
So I think Spider-Man 2 was the best video game story, superhero story of the year. I thought what they did with Venom and Goblin and Craven and I continue to think the way that this franchise mashes Spider-Man villains together in interesting and unexpected ways is really exciting. In the way that it uses novel gameplay mechanics to let you absolutely kick the shit out of those villains never disappoints. So that's mine. Deepak, what did you have?
Yeah, I thought about doing like Transformers: Rise of the Beast. I thought about maybe doing Blue Beetle, which was kind of an unexpected little surprise as a good movie this year. But I think the real big superhero movie story this year was really kind of a larger, more real world story, which is Marvel finally understanding that quality matters more than quantity. We got a lot of news this year about how Bob Iger realized that, they took their eye off the ball with prioritizing Disney Plus content over really focusing on the individual quality of each of the MCU movies. Of course, the bigger news was maybe that the DCU is rebooting and that the stuff that was started with Man of Steel apparently didn't work. So they're going to restart that with a James Gunn approach starting in 2025 with the new Superman movie.
Right on time.
Yeah, so it was a big year for superhero news as just far as, what the movie industry is doing to kind of react to, I think, changing tastes and shifting priorities from audiences. And, they want movies based on, dolls and nuclear physicists and things like that. So how do you, make the superhero landscape adjust? So I think that was really the biggest story, is that we're going to get fewer things from Marvel, but hopefully better things. We're going to get a brand new slate of movies from DC. You guys have already talked about a number of different superhero projects that are not in the traditional Marvel or DC universes, but are still fresh and new and exciting and buzzworthy. And that was my big superhero story for the year.
Not to speak to your short
I
list,
think-
Deepak, but I definitely had Blue Beetle as one of my runner-ups as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought you were going to take it. But of course, you did some avant-garde bullshit.
Whatever, that's
The
just
funny
me.
thing is,
I like to
this
be
is not the last time we're going to be talking about that, Tupac.
Mhm.
My big superhero story, or my best superhero story, it was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I absolutely adored this movie. I know there are people among us that have certain complaints about it. I know that some people are a little bit annoyed and over the whole multiverse type of a thing. Not to point fingers here. But actually, I think ideologically, like, not to borrow Riley's phrase, but my galaxy brain thing about this movie is that the antagonist is making Spider-Man this multiverse type of a thing, and Miles Morales is just focused on
That is true.
right? That is what this movie, I think, is about. Like, it is the Miles
I
Morales
wouldn't
is a
say
good
that's what it's
Spider-Man
about.
because he's helping the neighborhood regardless of anything. And there's a larger, we have to do this whole multiverse thing. And no, you don't. You just save one person. And I adore this movie. And everyone here agrees with me.
Riley, thoughts?
We don't. It's going to go over a minute.
No, I really,
I mean, it's a podcast.
If someone's gonna say Riley thoughts, I will say that I am pretty over the part 1, part 2 thing, and so I think like arriving at the end of Across the Spider-Verse and hitting that like to be continued buffer, even though I knew it was coming, was a pretty big disappointment. I am excited to see what they do with part 2, considering what the final moments of that movie kind of tee up.
Yeah, no one can say they're not going to watch part 3 because of that one.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who reads the comic books, I would say I am probably like less enticed towards the sequel than maybe the average viewer is, only because I feel there are a lot of questions kind of out there. Like someone who watched that movie 6 to 12 times, let's say, like probably has a lot of questions that if they read a fair number of Spider-Man comics, they might be able to answer, only because like they would have a better understanding of character, right? And I feel like there are a lot of characters in this movie that are introduced and dumped, and then it's like, ooh, mystery, and then in the next movie you're going to find out like a basic thing about their character and be like, mystery solved, and it's like, well, no, we just didn't tell you something. That's not a mystery. That's we didn't tell you something. So I feel like that's kind of where I am with that movie, but I don't blame people who like are less familiar with the character I'm talking about is Miguel O'Hara. Bruno, read that if you need to. Yeah, but
I mean,
they make that character seem like it is going to be the big bad villain of the series, and then I can promise you it won't be. So like that's sort of where I'm at. Is I'm like bored of that.
But is he a vampire?
I don't think they made him out to be a villain. They give you his origin story, don't they?
I
mean,
I feel like they.
I know his origin story from the comics. They don't. They there's a sizable chunk that they're not telling you.
Can I speak to this?
Or at least his reason for wanting to keep everything intact, I guess.
Bruno, what do you? Yeah, get in here.
So like, whatever.
I also wasn't. Whatever.
So like, they released the screenplay like recently on Deadline, like the full screenplay, and I actually took the time to read that entire thing page by page. And I kind of have to like agree with Riley a little bit in that they definitely make Miguel O'Hara come off as a lot more animalistic and villainous, but I don't want to take up too much time here, but like it almost made me think that they're making him take the position of Morlun when it comes to the Spider-Verse story.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
But again, we'll see how that goes on. I thought that was great. I thought that was like a great.
Nerd out about more Moon coming soon.
Yeah, I thought that was a great way of just reworking comic book stories without just like rehashing comic book stories, but to each their own.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, Bruno. I guess is I'm like, if you're gonna turn Miguel O'Hara into Morlun, then I am maybe tired of this, because the whole Spider-Verse series, saga comes out of the Morlun thing, and if you're not gonna honor that, then maybe I, as a comic reader, am bored. But okay. Sorry, that was our surely longest saga, which was best superhero story. Now we are going to move on to a much less contentious category. Now we're going to move on to best movie. So the difference that we've decided for this year between best movie and best film is artsiness. And we've kind of given everybody a degree of freedom to determine what the difference is between a movie and a film. But we've all nominated one cinematic experience for best movie and a different one for best film, and if you want us to defend our choices, you can certainly chase us down at whatever social media feed we're available on. But Bruno, why don't you start with your nominee for best movie?
So I originally thought that we were all going to be voting ourselves on categories, and I thought I was going to have an uphill battle here because I know the general opinion on this movie. But now that I have the fans on my side, I'm a little bit safe. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, you'd be in trouble if it was all of us.
Honest to God, I think this was one of like the greatest movies this year. I know you guys are gonna hate me for saying it, but I rank it above Endgame. I don't rank it above Infinity War, but I rank it above Endgame. There's a lot about this movie when it comes to the storytelling and when it comes to the emotion that is just amazing, start to finish. The offbeat comedy is amazing, start to finish. And Riley is leaving for the night.
Riley's signing off the podcast.
Brittany, are you drinking before the podcast?
Get on your soapbox, Bruno. Don't listen to any of them.
It's your show now. He's gone.
This is my genuine opinion of this movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, just in general, was like one of the best things that came out of the MCU. Not the second movie. The second movie was subpar, but the first movie was very, very good. And I thought the third movie was a really good bookend on the story for all of these characters, especially characters that we didn't expect to get a bookend on. I thought the ending at the begin. I thought the ending with Nebula and Drax and Rocket all just like celebrating the end of this was really great. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
No, I mean, everybody's making fun of me, Bruno, just because I like Guardians has just never worked for me. And this is like the monkey paw that I've wished on, that now James Gunn is going to take over my beloved DC universe. But no, I think I am 100% willing to believe that it works for a lot of people. I mean, this is the same thing I had with 2 and 1, right? Like, this is what, like,
Indeed.
Other people seem to like it. I believe that other people like it. it's not my tempo, but I am willing to believe it. It's just not made for me, and that's why everyone is having a fun time laughing at me. But my nominee, in a lot of ways, listen, fewer animals get shot with real guns in my movie.
That's a pro.
But
animals
also there
are
were fun
characters. They're people. Shut the fuck up.
People get shot with guns.
There were a lot of good fun songs in mine. Also.
Remember in Infinity War when he killed the Vision twice?
Yeah, but not with a gun.
He wasn't a cute little otter. Anyway, my movie was Barbie. I don't remember the last time I laughed as hard in a theater at a motion picture as when I saw Barbie. This thing was throwing fucking heat. Like, I just want to talk about this movie as a comedy. Like, not since the era of like Airplane and Caddyshack has a movie just been throwing so many like just jokes per minute, right? Like, not even in the dialogue, but in like the set design, in the like background art, in the costuming, in the choreography, like not even like jokes in the script, but just like the way the script was designed being a joke. There's a whole sequence where Barbie in the real world goes to talk to a group of middle school girls who don't think Barbie is cool, and they are stylized as the Brat dolls. And they accuse Barbie of fascism, and Barbie says, "I don't even control the railways." Like, I'm laughing for like 6 different reasons at that point in the movie. Barbie is fucking hilarious. It is written by the all-time great Greta Gerwig, she of Little Women and Lady Bird, 2 completely undeniable movies. Also written by her partner Noah Baumbach, who is also completely undeniable for his work on films like Squid and the Whale and Marriage Story. And I just think that I think there is something in this picture for everybody. I think Margot Robbie is hilarious. I think that Ryan Gosling is hilarious. I think that I think that this picture is really doing something special. And even if you're not trying to take any bigger moral lessons out of it, which you absolutely should, it is just a fucking giggle a minute, in my opinion.
It is a very funny movie. I liked it a lot.
Deepak, go ahead with your pick.
My pick was a movie I was not expecting to like as much as I did. It was Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. I've been a big fan of the series for a long time, but the last few I've been kind of down on, especially when McQuarrie started directing them. I feel like they've just kind of been all about kind of getting the technical aspects right, but the storytelling kind of fell off a little bit. And Cruise, more than anything, feels very robotic in 5 and 6. And 4. Now the new one really gets back to him playing Ethan Hunt. It feels less like he's just being Tom Cruise waiting for the next stunt. There's a really interesting story here with the AI. It actually feels like there is something impossible that they are up against. Adding Haley Atwell to the cast is fantastic. Ethan Morales playing the villain is really good. Palm Clementieff, who is, of course, Mantis in the Guardians movie, she's really good at the kind of henchwoman. They really lean into the Bond tropes, I think, more than ever in this one. But the set pieces are really diverse. The technical execution is, of course, incredible. And even the fact that it's a part 1 out of 2. And, of course, they're changing the title of part 2 now. So this is just part 1 with no part
Forever.
2 coming now. It still feels like a complete experience. I don't know when we're going to get the next part because of all the delays and the COVID and all of it, but this was really the most pleasant surprise of the year for me. I had a blast watching it in the theater. I'm glad I saw it in the theater because I almost skipped it, and I've seen it a couple more times at home. And I think it's the most entertaining movie of the year, and probably the most entertaining just action movie I've seen since
Now, before
Mad
we
Max
move
or
on,
something.
Big Daddy, you've got to account for. You and I had a little back and forth about this picture, and you told me I've already seen him go off the cliff on the motorcycle. Why do I have to go check it out in the theater? So let's talk about it. How did the, they had a very telling preview. You're a guy who trailers, they rub you the wrong way.
Yeah, and they
played
that before pretty much. Yeah, I think I saw it in IMAX. It was very loud. That was about it as far as the theater experience went. That actual sequence itself is probably the least essential of all the ones, since like Cruise doing a stunt became kind of the centerpiece of these movies, whether it's Burj Khalifa or hanging off the plane, which I still think is the most incredible thing he's done. Fallout, the Halo jump, I think is sort of similar to this in the sense that it's crazy that he did it, but they lather it with so much CGI and all the other stuff on top of it that it's almost beside the point. I respect the acumen and all that went into it. But my favorite part of the movie, if anyone has seen it, is kind of the first main set piece, which is them chasing each other around the Abu Dhabi airport, which has a very Bourne Ultimatum and Waterloo train station vibe to it, where it's very cat and mouse, and it's more about using brains over brawn. Not that the rest of the movie is any worse off for it, but the whole thing is just incredibly well done. Easily my favorite movie of the year. Not the best movie of the year, but my favorite movie of the year.
I actually watched the movie with my dad for the first time last night for his birthday, and it was really good. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's a blast. I just wanna say that, and this was maybe I was wondering about what I'm about to say, just to hear if Deepak would say something similar, and you didn't, and that's fine. But I just wanted to, for me, I think that seeing Tom go off the cliff so many times in the trailer, I think did maybe spoil it a little bit for me, seeing him do it in the movie. But in the picture, after Tom goes off the cliff, you kind of cut away from him for like 10 minutes. And the next time you see him made it so worth it for me. And I laughed out loud very, very hard. So
the cadence of how they do it in the movie versus just like the shot that you're shown in the making of. Is very well done. This movie has a lot of, it's funnier than the last few have been.
It's definitely
funnier than Fallout.
Maybe the funniest Mission Impossible movie. Yeah. All right, Fred, what you got for best movie?
My best movie was Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I think the fight scenes were incredible. I think the villain was menacing and threatening, but also kind of funny. I like Miles Morales as a character. I think he's fun. I think, just the visuals of this movie were incredible. I think they just kind of took what they did really well in the original Spider-Verse and kind of added a little bit to it. Gwen Stacy's like watercolor dimension, I thought was really great. I understand that they couldn't do that with every single Spider-Man character. I think it'd be weird to assume that they should, just because there's so many Spider-Man characters.
Spider-Man India.
Yeah, New Mumbai was such a great scene. Like I thought,
how dare you?
Sorry, what?
Mumbai. It's Mumbai and Manhattan. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
It was a great scene. And it was just like everything about that movie was fun. And, for some people, I get not liking the to be continued part. but you can't tell me you're gonna watch the movie and not be excited for part 2, right? Like it is such an exciting ending for me that I come off of it just exhilarated.
I
just go ahead, Bruno.
No, okay, so like I have to agree with Fred, and this is apparently, judging by the facial expressions I'm seeing, this is gonna be a hot take. But like, I read the screenplay, and I really think that this like movie was just brilliant, start to finish, to the point that in a non-rigged academy, I think this would be getting a nomination for the screenplay. But aside from that, like I think this is a good pick. They did shit on Ben Reilly quite a bit, but aside from that, it's okay.
So here's where I am at with Across the Spider-Verse, right? I mean, first of all, right, the original plan was Into Across Beyond, right? That was sort of how it was supposed to go. I do think that if the next movie was called Beyond the Spider-Verse, I think 20 to 40% of my chafing is gone almost instantly. Like, I do think that that is part of it, and I want to acknowledge that, because that might not be fair, but I do think that, like, if the literal last frame of this movie was not a card that said "to be continued," like if it was just the movie ended with the situation it ends with, that we're kind of trying not to give away, but is sort of a dire Batman 66-esque doomsday scenario, I think I would even be more comfortable with that. But for me, I think the bigger thing is, right, like the first movie, like Into, is just so clean, right? It is it talks about such a big story, but in such a minimalistic way. Its screenplay is tight as a drum. It feels like it attacks all the issues it wants to talk about with a complete like capacity of language that I am not displaying right now in sort of Jeff Goldbluming my way through this description. But like that's what I mean. Like that's what I think makes that first movie so impressive. And this one I think like has more ideas and is like, we're successful, we can take our time. And I think like that's it's, and Deepak, I think maybe you and I are on the same page here, which is rare. So maybe I'll pass it off to you. But I just think I think this one's a little bigger and looser, and maybe therefore less impressive.
I don't want to keep shitting on something that other people obviously like, but I'll just say that.
And I liked it a lot. I liked it. Great.
I did not. I think you liked it more than I did, which is saying something. My big takeaway when I was writing about it was that it just felt like the typical superhero sequel that takes whatever was good about the first one and just makes it. It's too big. It's too loud. There's too much going on, and it loses kind of the focus of what, like Riley was saying, made the first one so effective. To the point that I came away from it thinking maybe the approach to the Spider-Verse movies is to have it almost be like an anthology and have it just each movie focus on a different version of Spider-Man with some incursions from other ones on distinct adventures. Because I came into this one, it spends too much time setting things up, time that I thought could have been spent maybe finishing the story that we're going to get in part 3. And there's just, the villain is not really a villain until maybe halfway through the movie.
I think Deepak, you and I said the same thing, except you're phrasing it as a bad thing and I phrase it as a good thing. Like we actually agree with each other. It's just
I guess if you like it, it's more of a good thing. For me, I just kind of maybe I don't know, maybe but what you liked about it, as far as the artistry and the things like that, the voice actors, all of that, I like. But then there's also scenes that are like ripped right out of Rick and Morty, which I just felt like I was watching the Citadel of Ricks.
And you and I can text about how we have a problem with how every fucking movie has to have a Citadel of Ricks now.
Well, that's the thing, and it's not even. I feel like that show is not even in its prime anymore. So why are people still trying to do Rick and Morty? I don't get it.
No, it's not going to be in its prime ever again. Like after the whole.
The prime was like season 3 or 4, maybe.
I think it's wrong to call that trope Citadel of Ricks, but maybe that's just me.
Oh, no, hold on. Before we go to Fred, Bruno, I do want to hear, what would your shorthand be for the million same guy in the building trope?
I don't know, but like I'm pretty sure I've seen that first with like Reed Richards and Kang and like a lot of other characters in the comic book.
Sure, for sure. For
It's
sure.
it,
Yeah,
it is
maybe we
weird.
should go back and find who was the first everybody who was the Bartholomew.
To do an
Crowder.
etymological study.
What was his name? Josh, whatever. He turned out to be a horrible person, and then Kang
Can't
did it
remember.
with Jonathan Majors, and he also turned out to be a horrible person.
Justin
And I'm
Roiland.
wondering if that's
The Fantastic Four
guy named
director,
Josh,
Justin
right?
Roiland. Justin Roiland, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking about the
Justin Roiland. Yeah.
I was trying to say Josh Roiland. I was like, that's not right. And
I thought Fred just knew some dude named Josh that had a millennial chamber.
Some guy.
All right, Fred, describe your best new movie nominee so we can definitely not take a break because we're going to continue after this.
Right. So my best
Yeah.
movie nominee was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Like we were just
No.
talking about.
Wait,
Shut the fuck. Hey, Jack,
Hi.
did we do yours?
No, man.
yeah, no,
You're on top of it.
We were waiting for Jack.
It is me, yeah.
Fred already did his.
I'm doing my weird order. I'm trying to keep up with it. Talk about Dungeons and Dragons, idiot.
Wow, just give it away. Don't even let me have my time, why don't you? Yeah, so I'm very attached to certain IP, which I hold very dearly, and I get worried about when they're going to be adapted into formats that I don't think will work. This came up with the Mario movie earlier, which I don't think worked as well as Deepak does.
No small Bradley Cooper.
No small Bradley Cooper is one of the biggest problems. And I was really worried about how Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is going to be done. I thought there were a lot of ways they could take it that wouldn't have been effective or effective maybe, but that I wouldn't have liked.
For example, no small Bradley Cooper.
Shut up. Instead, I think they actually ended up doing something really very close to everything I could hope for. You never get a scene that cuts out to the players playing the game, which I like. But there still managed to be a lot of jokes about the game and its tropes and how it is played. Regé Jean Page is one of the funniest characters in the movie. You get a lot of even the combat feels like it's trying to pace itself in the way that Dungeons and Dragons combat usually does. It pulls pretty deep lore. There's a lich that isn't Vecna or a Serac that is canon to the Forgotten Realms, which I love. It just feels like the people who were involved really, really took the time to give a shit. And all of the non-human characters look like big doofy puppets, and it's great. Yeah, I like everything they chose to do with it. And, as has been alluded, Bradley Cooper plays a halfling that is done by just putting him on a green screen and scaling him down 50%, which is the perfect way to do it.
The worst
I
thing
loved
about
it.
this movie is that they named it Honor Among Thieves. They just call it Dungeons and Dragons. That's it.
Oh, well, that would be
Could've used a
difficult
hyphen or
from a
two.
marketing standpoint, I think. But fair enough. I'm surprised it's not Honor with a U. I wonder if they localized that.
Maybe.
I think that they took a good measure at this. I think that the movie was successful. There has been a lot of discussion about whether or not there will be a sequel. I certainly hope there will be. Financially, I don't know that the movie maybe crossed any sort of internal benchmarks it had to justify a sequel, but at the same time, the Honor Among Thieves structure, whether or not we like the title, Deepak, does allow them to scrumple together a whole other movie in 2 years called Dungeons and Dragons. This one's a new subtitle with an entirely new cast,
Right.
right? That's just
But
an
it's what we
Ocean's
talk
12.
about where it's like you name the movie as if it's already part of a franchise
Yeah,
instead
well,
of just
definitely.
letting
This one arguably is already a part of a franchise, just not a cinematic
sorry, part of a
one.
movie series. Right.
I mean, but I would
do
say,
think there's a Paramount Plus series that they can make out of this. Very, not I want to say
Yeah.
easily, but the material is definitely there. If a movie is not
if
in
another
the cards
movie
financially.
fizzles, I definitely think there is a Paramount Plus series somewhere in here. But I would also say that I think that rotating casts, there was enough other stuff this year in the Dungeons and Dragons IP sort of world, Jackson, amongst the
Lord knows.
various ordinance use law cases and stuff, right, that I think Hasbro is being really aggressive about their Dungeons and Dragons license right now. I would be surprised if we didn't get another movie in the next couple of years.
Well, I hope it keeps up what this one started.
All right. So those are our first couple categories. Like we've said so far, if you head over to NIHF.com, you can vote for your favorites in each category. We are really quickly going to take a break. And on the other side, we'll be back wearing all the same clothes to talk about more of our favorite movies and stuff. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Check out our seamless transition. We've all definitely just been sitting here for a few moments and not 24 hours. Next in the order, we're going to discuss the best streaming service of 2023. And I would like our conversation to start off this time around with Fred.
So yeah, I cheated on this one. I did the Hulu and Disney Plus bundle.
Well, I mean, it's one affair at this point.
It's a subscription, yeah.
Yeah. It's the one I've been rocking with the most, I think. There's a lot of great stuff on there. I think, if you're not feeling like going to the movies to see a Marvel one, I think the Disney Plus is kind of like been clutch for that. I think it's just a lot of great shows on there. The Attack on Titan season 4 was on Hulu. There's a lot of great animes on Hulu tend to go there. It's just a good combination of stuff, and it spices up Netflix a little bit.
Fantastic. Jack, what did you have?
Yeah, I took Netflix for my streaming service of choice. This was a little bit difficult because I had mixed feelings. When I submitted my answers, I had one for content and one for behavior. Because I'm certainly not like advocating the business decisions Netflix has made over the last year. But I cannot deny that I've spent the most time, and I usually spend the most time on their services, in part because they knock animation very consistently out of the park in a way that I haven't found a lot of other services do, and that's just where a lot of my viewing time skews. I mentioned Blue Eye Samurai already as a standout, but Arcane Season 2 is coming up. They got all sorts of good stuff, so... I was surprised it wasn't taken already. I know it's a little bit of the default, but
ironic that Disney Plus the charge on animation.
I mean, yeah, seriously. Jack, what was your other one? Can I just ask?
I was leaning towards Disney as well. If I didn't go for Netflix.
Well, do you have any anything to stump for on the Disney platform before
now that I have to think about it, it's rough. But there was Castlevania Nocturne was really good. There's the new Scott Pilgrim animated version, which I haven't finished, but I've started.
These are all on Netflix. Riley asked about Disney. I don't know if you meant to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Netflix.
No, I also thought you meant the one that I chose.
Well, no. That's fantastic. I just thought you were throwing amazing shade of Fred being like, oh, yeah. No, it's Fred.
No, it's not what I meant at all.
No. That's fine. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about all your different thoughts, but it sounds like you can't even strip your thoughts away from Netflix for a moment. I won't ask you to pitch for Fred's thing. That's totally fine. Bruno, what was yours?
So my pick was mainly because it was just the last one available versus everyone else. It ended up being Amazon. But then the
life of a producer, eh, bud?
But then the more I just sat down and took a look at it, the more I realized how much I spent on Amazon this year, because we had Legend of Vox Machina at the beginning of the year coming in with their season 2. Invincible just finished the first half of their season 2. Reacher.
I hate how they do that too.
Was Rings of Power this year or last year?
Rings of Power was last year. I did last year like that. But Reacher's coming out with its second season this year. As far as movies go, they had Air, as well as Saltburn, which were two pretty great movies. There was one last. And then I just realized that with Amazon, I guess I'm cheating along with Fred. That also includes Freevee, which had that sleeper hit Jury Duty. You guys remember that?
Yes, I love Jury Duty, man.
And
Jury Duty was an all-timer that we should take a little bit of time just in our end of year awards thing to shout out.
I thought that was so
absolutely
fun.
no, like it's just
So fun.
fits the definition perfectly of like a sleeper hit. And then
Well, and when
And
it,
who
and Bruno,
expected
to
a
your
sequel to 12 Angry Men?
But Bruno, to your point, like it was on Freevee, and for a long time, like I listened to a lot of podcasts hosted by like indie LA comedians, and they were all talking about it. But I was like, I'm not gonna like dial up Freevee. And the minute Amazon was like, we have Jury Duty, I was like, episode 1. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think that was a big win for Amazon this year.
yeah, so that's my pick. Lastly, just another branch that they have that I use a lot. I don't know if other people do. Comicsology, just like any comics you
Hell
can,
yeah, brother.
like, or most of the comics you can, they're on there. So yeah.
Yep. I was really I was on this podcast being disappointed when Amazon bought Comicsology, but it is still out there, and they have not diminished the product, which is what I was worried about. So,
Yeah,
no, I'm with you 100%. My nominee this year was Paramount Plus, which I wanted to just do a quick walk down memory lane because I always like to bring up in the early days of this version of the show. I suppose it was the last version of the show now that we're on video and we've expanded the team and done everything we did last year. But, there was when we really felt like we had kind of evolved as a show. One of the first episodes we were talking about that CBS was going to have this platform called CBS All Access, and they were going to have one Star Trek show called Star Trek Discovery. And we were like, is that going to prop up a platform? And I am here to tell you, Paramount Plus has a lot of Star Trek shows, and I love it. And also, it has Survivor. It has Twin Peaks, 2 shows that I am basically always watching.
It's kind of engineered to get Riley's attention, I feel.
Yeah.
It has football, right? It has CBS Sunday Morning, right? It has the news. Like, it is one of the only, and this blows my mind to this minute, and I won't eat too much into Deepak's time here, but the number of cable providers who have that's not how we talk about it anymore. The number of people who own cable channels who have a streaming app that don't let you watch their cable channels live on the streaming app is mind-blowing to me, because it just feels like lost revenue, because just show me the ads. I don't care. Right.
Right.
And Paramount Plus is the only app that I have identified that consistently will just let you watch the channels that CBS owns. And that is also a big win for me as a person who wants to just be able to. In my experience, Deepak, Peacock has not. It may have changed since the last time I looked, but they have channels, but they are not like NBC. They're like, we're running the Today Show all day. Right.
In that way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And as a person who wants to completely recreate the cable experience through streaming services, like I want access to television channels. Like I would love to be able to just put on TV. I just don't want to pay for cable because it's too expensive. But like I'd love to just watch I Love Lucy reruns all day, right?
Riley's dream is to turn on channel 2 and just watch the guide scroll slowly.
Yes!
Like this, just so he can know what's on TV at any given time.
No, but anyway, so
TV guide channel.
Star Trek, Survivor, Twin Peaks, being able to watch real TV, football, etc. Paramount Plus. If you can climb all the way to the top of that mountain, you can hang out with I was going to say you can hang out with Kenny, and that reminded me. The other thing they have are the very fun periodic 45-minute South Park specials that they refer to as movies for legal reasons.
Well, the best thing about them is what you didn't even say, which is that they get their new release Paramount movies within like 45 days.
That's what I'm saying.
The best thing about watching movies on Paramount Plus is that even if you have the ad subscription like I do, they just front load the ads for like 3 minutes, and then you watch the movie uninterrupted. So like Top Gun Maverick, Rise of the Beast, the new fucking the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all that. You can watch it all there.
Yep.
Yeah. Megan was Peacock.
Pardon me.
You fool.
Falling right into his trap. Deepak, go ahead.
Yes. My pick was Peacock. It has pretty much a lot of the things that Riley said. You can watch if not the local or the NBC channels, you can watch the programs. You can watch, obviously, new release movies from Universal. They just dropped The Holdovers, for example, like a month after it was in theaters, which is really convenient. They have a lot of old TV. I talked about Columbo earlier, and they have a lot of new TV as well. But the main, and of course they have football. They're going to have the first streaming playoff game coming up this weekend as of this recording, Miami at Kansas City. But the main thing that Peacock has, which is why it's the most indispensable streaming service, is that it has the one thing I'm absolutely addicted to more than food, more than drugs, more than alcohol, more than women. It's true crime. They have Dateline and they have all the other
They
stuff.
have
that
Dateline and The Office and Seinfeld.
Well, those they don't have Seinfeld, but they have.
Not?
So Netflix has Seinfeld.
That's right. Netflix bought that whole thing. I forgot about that. That
Yeah,
would be
but,
like your Triforce if they had all three of those.
Yeah, I mean, I would cancel every other subscription service.
I don't know if he knows what
And I could.
is,
I have
but you're
Seinfeld
right.
on DVD, but I like watching the 4K versions, except they crop some of the funny jokes out. But Peacock is the best. Get it. If you don't have it, you're stupid.
Actually, sorry, but if I was gonna, I just wanted to say before we moved on. Now that I thought about it more, if I'm gonna go to bat for any other service, it would be Max, which none of us mentioned, but I also did
I
spend a
was
lot of
going
time
to,
on.
but I didn't want to give Zaslav his flowers.
That's fair.
I unsubscribed from Max this year.
Oh, well, there you go. I already talked about Scavenger's Reign, which is great, but they have a few things. They had The Last of Us this year. There was stuff.
Yeah.
It's some really good things this year. Listen. I know that nobody knows how I feel about David Zaslav. I've really played it close to the chest.
I haven't spoken on this issue.
I recognize that this may be going out too far in one direction or the other, but that the amount of content offered on that app did expand dramatically after the merger.
Yeah. A lot of true crime there too. I'm all over it.
Impossible to find anything. The UI is horseshit.
Yeah, no, it's a bad app.
Just in general, the ability to sort between one type of thing and another is a nightmare. There's a lot of stuff on that bad boy if you can find it.
But that's by design because you're go looking for one thing, you'll stumble on something else, and they got you.
And they don't care. They are, the minute you log in, they have achieved their quota for the day, which is daily active users, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't give a shit if you watch anything or not. They just
and
need
for
to
the
be
last
able to
3 or
invest
4
their
weeks straight,
daily
the first
active
thing you
user.
see when you log in is Barbie.
It's Barbie. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Let's move on to our nominees for MVP of 2023.
I love that.
And
the
let's-
3D words.
For the 3Ds. Hey, Jack, just for that, let's start with you.
Oh, great. So my MVPs of the year was SAG-AFTRA and the WGA.
Hey.
Fought the good fight. I didn't have a ton of faith in them. Obviously, this year has been plagued with news stories, good and bad. But this was, I feel like by the end, a pretty optimistic note. They got most of what they were looking for, even if it took quite a while. And hopefully, nobody's going to be out of a job because of these fancy computers. We'll speak more on that later. Cough, cough. But yeah, I just think it was so unavoidable that we had to talk about it. And I don't have much commentary on it besides good job. But
I think
glad that it happened.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely where all of our focus was for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Bruno, I think I'm going to come back to you for like impact reasons, if I'm guessing
reasons.
your nominee correctly.
Fair. Okay.
And let's go to so my actually let's go to Deepak next. Deepak, who was your nominee?
My nominee, I thought about it long and hard, LOL. And the only thing I could come up with are subscribers like you.
Oh
People
no!
who-
Yeah,
I thought that was
okay,
Bruno.
yeah,
Absolutely beefed it.
As soon as Riley said that, I was like, he thinks I'm subscribers, doesn't he? He definitely thinks I'm
Yeah.
subscribers.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can take an edit point. We can run it back.
What did Bruno have? What did Bruno have?
I have
Yeah,
824.
Riley, you want to take that one again?
I can see. I can absolutely see why you would think you can get 24.
Yeah, no, my
Let's
pick,
go into
What
Bruno.
was it?
my pick was 824.
Yeah.
Agent
Yeah,
24?
Yeah. Say more about that.
You know the movie studio?
A24?
Oh, A24. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I don't. What did they have this year? I don't think I saw any A24 movies this year.
I mean, so like,
Oh, I saw Talk to Me. That kind of sucked.
I mean, okay, so aside from Talk to Me, without giving away my pick for best film, my short list included.
Is Talk to Me the hand one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my short list for best film this year.
Sorry, stuck is the wrong word. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it just it included Beau's Afraid, Dream Scenario,
Mhm.
Beef.
But
Beef.
not a film, but Beef was included there as
That's
well.
not a movie.
Is that their first TV venture?
As far as
no.
I'm aware.
It's the
They
first
may have done others, but it's the first one I watched. for sure.
mainstream one. And then at the beginning of the year, they also like just fucking sweep the Oscars with Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, that's fair. That did happen this year.
We thought they were gonna lose like just one of the acting nominees at least, but then Brendan Fraser came in running with The Whale.
Mhm.
And then they were also like they were some pretty big team players during the SAG and WGA strikes because
Yeah.
not being like one of the major conglomerate studios, they were actually approved to like move forward with a lot of their productions, so they were able to like give a lot of those laborers like some time to actually get food on their tables and pay some bills. So
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I do think they were one of the studios who early on kind of acquiesced to a lot of the requests from the unions and were able to go back into production early.
yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, look what happens when you're not a publicly traded company. You don't have to
Yeah.
respond to shareholders.
And then
I
John
think their
Adventure,
star has
too.
definitely
Yeah,
been rising in a major way. I think a lot of people are aware of them in a way that they haven't been before. We talked about that before, but like especially Everything Everywhere at the
Yeah.
awards
yes.
has made them a more household name than they've been before, I think.
So sort of building off of Jack's nomination, my nomination for MVP of the year was Fran Drescher, who was the face of the Screen Actors Guild sort of public-facing strike efforts, and who had a couple of really high-profile moments this year where, as the star of the 1990s sitcom The Nanny,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
she did not necessarily need to show up as motherfucking hard as she did, but she did. Bruno dropped the clip here, and I really think that she did a lot for the strike specifically, right? And I was trying to find. I will say, just to I don't. To be honest, I'm not sure if any of the categories we've talked about so far are going to go my way. So if I can toot my own horn a little bit here, I wanted to pick a person. So
Yeah,
I found
none of us did that.
to nominate, and I think Fran deserves MVP. So I'm throwing her out there. Fred, who's your nominee?
Right. So as we all know, corporations are people. I picked
Legally
Nintendo.
speaking, that is true.
I picked Nintendo. Between shadow dropping Metroid Prime, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, and the Mario movie, I think they had a lot of solid hits this year. A lot of my personal favorites came out this year, so I was very happy. Everything they touch tends to work out, and so I'm kind of here for them.
That's fair enough. Did you have a personal favorite of the year?
So I did, and we are going to talk about the game that came out this year. Before I get into that one, though, Metroid Prime has a special place in my heart, and so having that just surprise it's released and available, and then for them to run out of physical copies because people were so excited and they bought it, that was really fun. Where they physically could not keep up with demand, which it's great to see. And again, that game is a special place in my heart, so I really enjoy it.
That's fair enough. All right, Deepak.
I also thought about including Metroid Prime as my MVP, but I don't like how they went woke and made Samus a girl. So I totally ruled that out. My MVP, there were a lot of options. It was a big year. You guys have talked about the strikes. You guys have talked about A24 as a studio, just really cleaning up at the Oscars. But mine is subscribers like you guys who let this happen, subsidize us, make it possible for us to get on camera and talk about dumb shit like this. Obviously, you guys are into the same stuff. That's very important to us. You guys make it possible for us to do what we do. We're here for you. And it's great that you guys are here now for us. And we hope 2024 is a year where there's more of you and maybe even more of us and more content, more opinions, more videos, more articles, more everything. And so, yeah, my MVP is subscribers like you, which is why I know you're going to vote for you.
Vote for yourself.
I love a pander. I love a pander more than almost anything else in the world. And I would like to remind everyone who's watching, if you've made it this far, and this is pretty deep into an episode that is mostly just us listing stuff, if you've made it this far, scroll down just a little bit and please vote, because again, we will be so embarrassed if we have to be like, and this guy got one vote and that's all he won. We will just be completely emasculated.
I've already printed the t-shirts for me winning. It's like the loser for the Super Bowl t-shirts already printed, but I know I'm going to win. So
yeah,
here's the thing. I've already made a bunch of different emails, and so I know that my son's going to get a bunch of votes. So if you don't want me to win,
amazing.
So if Red wins, we know there's fraud. Stop the count.
Stop the steal. Next, we're going to move on to most memorable moment of the year. There was a little bit of contention in this category. Some of us nominated news stories. Some of us nominated fictional events. Eventually, it was decided that fictional stuff would be the way this went. So these are our favorite moments from movies, games, TV shows, comics, etc. this year. And let's go ahead and start with Bruno.
So I just went with just Ken. Just Ken.
I'm just Ken. And where else I Ken?
I mean, in generally just the entire performance of Ryan Gosling in that movie. But if I were to single out to a single thing, it would be the I'm Just Ken song. But I mean, come on, I feel like it was a movie that's in my opinion, it's a movie about Barbie. It's entirely about Barbie. But there were moments where Ryan Gosling was just effortlessly stealing the scene, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand how we're in the year 2024 and Matchbox 20 has a song that's topping charts, and it's a non-original song too.
So good. Oh my god, I was referring to my home as the Mojo Dojo Casa House for a while after that movie. Much to the sugar to my wife, she was pissed, but it was so funny.
Sublime.
So there was an instant, I want to say it was maybe in 2021, because I feel like it was in the deep dark pandemic. But there was a moment a couple of years ago where a couple of either very young millennials or Gen Z musicians had covered the Goo Goo Dolls Slide, a very a song that I think a lot of people about my age really related to. And I saw a lot of young people, which is a phrase I have to say now because I'm an old. I saw a lot of young people responding to the song very favorably, but they'd never heard it before, and they were thinking perhaps these two young women had written it, and they were really going out of their way to credit the Goo Goo Dolls, but it was just people hadn't heard it before. A similar phenomenon I saw occur around Push, where the Zoomers were all like, "Wait, this was an actual song? That seems illegal. How could you just let someone make this a song?" And there were a lot of things about just the Kenergy of Barbie that I really loved. But Bruno, I'm gonna have to zag on your zig, because my pick was when Optimus Prime reclaimed Bumblebee's badge from Scourge in Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And he said, "This belongs to a friend of mine." And then he punched the shit out of Scourge, and he brought Bumblebee back from the dead. And I thought that was cool as shit. And it was a Beast Wars movie, and I loved it. And I might just be Ken for that, but that's my nominee for most memorable moment of the year. I have nothing more to say about that. Deepak.
That moment made my beast rise.
Reminder.
Look, Optimus Prime can enter a doorway, and I'm still that's the most goddamn manly thing
That's
I've
the
ever
coolest
seen.
way anyone's ever walked into a door.
Fred cut out right when he said Optimus Prime can enter, and I'm just going to let it ride.
We talked about it when we reviewed the movie, but I can't remember if it was on mic or off, but I genuinely
It wasn't
think
on
that
mic.
Transformers is one of the only franchises that has like preserved an aura of prestige for its star, who happens to be a semi truck that turns into a man. But like every time Optimus Prime shows up on screen, like this franchise,
I'm full
Yeah.
attention. Salute.
Yeah, it's
you are, but it's because the franchise takes it seriously. Like you guys, yes, I also have an erection. I agree, but like that is what they're doing, right? Like they do go out of their way to be like the president is here, right? Like in a way that Mission Impossible or James Bond or other like it's all about this guy franchises. Like they don't take. I don't think any cinema franchise takes as seriously the showing up of the hero as the Transformers movies that are like Optimus Prime is here, sit up straight.
To speak
but
to Riley's point,
who's the voice actor for him? Because he's I
Peter
feel
Walker.
Peter Cullen.
Peter Cullen.
Cullen,
thank you.
sorry.
Yeah, he's like his performances have always been phenomenal, and he brings it every time. He's on Invincible's cast, and you hear him, and you're like, "That's Optimus Prime."
Exactly. Yeah.
What you're saying.
I was watching.
I can't watch Aladdin anymore because the Cave of Wonders. I just hear Transform. I just hear Optimus Prime.
Just Optimus Prime.
Who disturbs my
Bumblebee,
slumber?
touch nothing but the lamp. All right, Deepak.
Yeah, my most memorable movie moment has to do with a big cuddly lizard
Yes.
who comes up out of the water and attacks a small little hamlet called Tokyo, and
I feel like you took each other's moments.
gets into a
I
little
also
bit
feel
of
that.
a kerfuffle with the residents of that town,
We do this.
and decides that he needs to lay waste to it with his breath.
He's gonna stomp
and
on
Big
it.
stinky breath.
Godzilla's atomic breath scene, at least the first time it's used in the new movie Godzilla -1, is one of the most incredible Godzilla moments in the character's now 70-year history.
Yep.
And he's had some pretty good moments, especially recently with the American movies. And then, of course, there was Shin Godzilla about 5 or 6 years ago. But my God, there's another really great moment at the end when they're trying to take him down for the final time, and the Godzilla theme kicks in, and it becomes this huge moment in the movie. But the atomic breath is hard to top. That's really it's wild. That's if you haven't seen Godzilla -1, go see Godzilla -1.
I agree 100%. I want to specifically flag for listeners and viewers. And if you're listening to this and you want to view it, remember to head over to NIHF.com, or if you're not into the whole brevity thing, youtube.com/NIHF. But you bring up a great point, Deepak, and I want to remind everybody that Godzilla -1 is coming back to theaters and IMAX in a black and white version very soon. So if you didn't catch it when it was out, that doesn't mean you didn't catch it. But I 100% agree that I just think this movie, Shin Godzilla, which was the prior Toho movie and was kind of Toho coming back into the Godzilla game for a first time in a long time, like was such a cool movie, but like had a really liberal definition of what Godzilla means, right? And like, I would encourage anybody.
That movie was more about criticizing the Japanese government's response to the Fukushima disaster, and Godzilla was more of a metaphor for that.
Yes.
This one uses Godzilla in very interesting ways, especially as a
metaphor for giant lasers.
Actually, more of a metaphor for trauma and survivor's guilt and things like that. It does some really interesting things metaphorically.
It's incredible. It's such an amazing picture.
Yeah, Jack and giant lasers, dummy.
And for giant lasers.
There's another great bit where Godzilla is chasing the little steamboat in the water, and
that movie's water combat.
The first time you see Godzilla, the guy's in a turret with a flashlight or like one of those spotlights, and he's just going like this, and all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, he just happens to see Godzilla. And he's like, what the? It's, oh my God, I saw it in IMAX. It's worth it.
So good.
It'll be good in black and white, but I think color is really.
I agree, but it's such a good, like, it's probably one of the best Godzilla movies. And like, it feels silly to say.
Guys.
I hear you, Bruno.
We'll get back to it.
But I'm talking about Godzilla right now.
But it's moment. It's not film. Wait for it.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, we're talking about the atomic breath.
The whole movie is a
We
moment.
don't get to talk about this movie anywhere else, and I just want to say,
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do, actually. It's your pick, Riley.
fine. Glad
It's
you
your
ahead.
pick.
You're right.
I feel
I
I'm
did
like,
pick it later.
God,
I need
only
a different
half
job.
This is gonna know the experience I'm about to talk about, and it's not these two. And I feel like I'm not gonna sell it as well as these guys sold Godzilla. My most memorable moment of the year was when playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and you think it's all gonna be in the sky. It's gonna be the Sky Islands, and you jump down a hole on a whim, and you discover that without telling anyone, Nintendo built an entire new map underneath the old one.
It goes
And
down.
it was this entire extra level to the entire map that was pitch black that you got to explore. And the minute I discovered that, my mind was blown. They didn't
Yeah.
tell anyone about it. They like sold this game on, oh, you're in the sky now. You have all this stuff above the normal map that was already huge. And all of a sudden they've doubled it underneath in a pitch black, scary, and ominous way. And it was incredible.
Yeah, the
They
moment where you actually jump down that hole for the first time, just like, oh, because there are a lot of cave systems and like,
Yeah.
you go underground before this, but the amount of time that you spend falling and then it opens up and it is just the biggest cavern you've ever seen. Like, my jaw was actually open. It was stunning. This was a strong number 2 on my moments list as well.
So,
So
I was going to say, for me, if I could have picked individual podcast moments, I may have picked when Jack pointed out that Tears of the Kingdom sounds a lot like Tears of the Kingdom. And
like the levels of the kingdom.
right. And I think after realizing that, I maybe wasn't as surprised to hear there was also a downstairs. But
Mhm.
yeah, I can imagine where that would just rock your shit.
so I didn't know about this until Fred informed me his picks, and I've had Tears of the Kingdom since it launched, and I've put in a total of 3 hours into that game. I checked. I checked this morning.
Not the route.
I've put
Alright.
only 3 hours into that game, and so for me, the hype was pretty much dead. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get back into it because everyone else was talking about it. After talking to Fred about it, I'm going to go play this game now.
Not
I'm
only
gonna play
that,
the shit out of it.
all some of the most like iconic weapons from previous Zelda games are down in that depths.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to sell too much. Like the big Goron sword from Ocarina of Time is down there. Majora's Mask is down there through a gauntlet of like the worst enemies in the game. Like,
Hey, I
it was-
recognize these things.
Yeah, like the historical Zelda items are all down there, which you
Yeah.
couldn't get in the last game,
Mm.
except through amiibos.
Mm.
Yeah, that was probably the coolest moment of the year for me.
Jackson, I was not looking at the list. Don't think I was expecting this to be your pick, but I love that it was.
Oh yeah, so my pick was the Oppenheimer Trinity test.
Mm.
Deepak was talking about this cool fake atomic breath thing. Wait till you hear about my tale. So obviously this moment was a little... It's always difficult to do like a historical moment in a film, I think, because people know what happens. And a huge part, kind of 2/3 of this movie, is building to this one moment. So they had to sell it really well. And I like a lot of the things that they chose to do with it. I think it's very powerful. It is the moment that, more than anything else I've experienced, sticks out in my brain. The choice to make it completely silent is, I think, very interesting and lets the visual effects, which they did in very interesting techniques for, shine through. And yeah, overall, I think it is the...
would have done it justice, to be honest.
Right, exactly. And they set it up really well with all of the delayed explosions and the tests leading up to the actual detonation. Your anxiety is through the roof. They do a really good job. Again, it's very hard to make a movie where you explain science in an interesting way and the difficulties of getting this theoretical idea to actually happen. And I was expecting for a long time that this, you can probably hear me on this podcast talk about it. I was expecting that to be the end of the movie. Like they build up to the Trinity test and then it goes off and then that's just it. They didn't quite do that, although it is, I think, the peak of the movie's like tension and there's a version of it, I think, where that's the end. But still, I really like what he did, and I think it's a really powerful scene.
I like when they keep filling up the fishbowl with marbles to show you how much.
Yeah, they built up to that moment incredibly,
and how long it takes,
Absolutely.
and then suddenly they're not sure if like the detonator is going to work, and it's just going to blow up all of the plutonium over the desert, never to be recovered.
God, I need to
And
watch
Mike's
Oppenheimer.
Near zero.
Oh yeah, it's a great film, man.
You know, I was watching the Golden Globes the other night as he was accepting, and
As who?
Who's he?
Nolan.
Yeah, because a few of the Oppenheimer people like won the Golden Globe that night.
As Nolan was accepting, he spoke about the last time he was on that stage. It was to accept in place of
Heath
Ledger.
Ledger's. Yeah.
And I just thought about when we did our review episode and talking about, you know, the weight that he must feel a responsibility to carry, right? Of sort of the superhero industrial complex and Ledger's death and everybody talking about the Dark Knight all the time and the Nolan fandom that has like manifested and all that, and like him really quickly going straight to Heath and that of it all. I thought it validated that reading pretty clearly, and I thought it made all of that movie so much more impactful because of that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, are we gonna move on to best game? Let's move on to
Sure.
And I wanted to clarify, this was best game we played this year. So while three of us came to the table with new games, one of us at least came to the table with a very, very different game than
Whatever. You didn't pick Columbo, so
no.
I'm just saying. I feel like stuff from this year went out the window earlier.
It was all about what we experienced this year, and I was just trying to clarify that as we go in here. And I do want to start with Deepak.
Yeah, my pick is Red Dead Redemption 2, which I bought
Might have my
Black
vote.
Friday time. And
Game.
I wasn't sure if this was Deepak O'Reilly, to be honest.
Oh no.
yeah, I played about 45 minutes of it so far, and it's fun. I like
great game.
I like riding the horses and in the snow and shooting the wolves and stuff. It's fun. It's better than the Assassin's Odyssey, whatever bullshit thing.
God.
But it seems to have more purpose to it. It's kind of like an Old West kind of thing. I like the Old West. I was in Yellowstone earlier this. Oh, Peacock has Yellowstone. That's another reason Peacock slapped. So yeah. Anyway,
Deepak, I know that we
I don't play video games very much, guys. I could have picked Madden 23, but Madden 23 sucks.
Actually, I mean, like to speak to Deepak really quick and just to like defend his choice of like picking this game for 2023. Red Dead Redemption 2 did win an award in 2023 for best maintained game.
Best ongoing game experience.
Which does piss me quite a lot off given my pick, but we'll get to that later.
No, and that's what I was thinking of when I picked it, really. It's the best ongoing game experience of the year.
So Deepak,
it was that or Cyberpunk or Tetris or something else, and I picked this. So.
Yeah. Those all were involved for sure. We tried to do this with Alien. Do you think your ideal version of experiencing Red Dead is we hop on a call for like 2 hours a week and I play Red Dead and we just drink and talk
No,
about
I think it should be me playing it and just you
for 45 minutes a year.
Trying so hard not to just like come through the phone and beat the shit out of me for like not figuring out all this gamer shit that is like second nature to you.
That could be a lot of fun for sure.
I hold the controller like this when I play. But,
moving on to Fred. Fred, what is your pick for Game of the Year?
Game of the Year, it's Tears of the Kingdom. I had an incredible time playing this game. Like I said, it had already won the best moment of the year for me. This game did so many good things It did so many good things better than the previous game did that I didn't even realize like could be improved upon. As someone who just does not like weapon degradation, this game all of a sudden made it more exciting and fun to do. And I was just kind of lamenting. I was like, all right, well, I know it has weapon degradation. I'll just kind of like deal with that. But it made it incredible. Everything in this game is useful, and it doesn't feel like it's taking up a bunch of space in my inventory that I just never get to. Which is just something that I didn't think could be done. Like, this game innovated in so many awesome ways on a game that I already really enjoyed. It was just Breath of the Wild, but better. And I really, really liked it. I thought building your own house was really cool. I thought bringing all of your horses over was really nice. So I had all the same horses that I had from the previous game, which was really fun. I felt going into it, because I played Breath of the Wild, I had a plan of how to tackle this game because it's such a mammoth of a game. And that it just was really, really enjoyable for me.
Yeah, that's great. Was there anything, Fred, that you thought, I mean, obviously there's the, kind of tactical stuff that they talked about in the lead up to the game, but like as you were playing it, did you have any moments where you were just like, oh, this is so far and away different from what I experienced in the last life-changing Zelda game that came out a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was the Tears of the Kingdom lets you attach monster parts together to build weapons and improve on your weapons. And there was a thing where I was still playing it like Breath of the Wild for a long time, and I was tackling this 3-headed dragon that was just an absolute nightmare. And I was still playing it like Breath of the Wild, and I was just hitting my head against a wall. And then I switched to playing it like Tears of the Kingdom. And I attached eyeballs to my arrows, and it guided arrows all the way to exact the weak points that I needed. And it was very satisfying. And it got to the point where I got pretty good at it. And so I would have no extra food or anything, and I'd be sitting with my girlfriend like, should I attack this thing? And she'd be like, no, you should go make food. I was like, I'm gonna attack this thing. And it would be great. It was a terrific time. But no, yeah, changing your thinking it's very much something that I enjoy doing. It's what I liked about Dark Souls 2 or Elden Ring is, you tackle a problem so many different ways, and you could just slam your head against it, or you could find out how the game has built all these great systems to let you tackle this seemingly impossible problem. And that's always a treasure for me. Like,
I also want to say, for what it's worth, I think it's my favorite final boss in any Zelda game.
Oh yeah, the final boss sequence was incredible. From everything that you've done previously in the game, helping you at the very end like that, you go through an absolute gauntlet getting to the final boss.
I mean, it's no secret that the final boss is Ganondorf, and the way that they use the camera just in the first, like at the very beginning, in the very first phase, like it's a dramatic cinematic camera sweeping around, and then it just goes straight into gameplay, and it just hit me all at once, like, oh fuck, I have to fight Ganondorf with a sword now, and he's just gonna murder me.
Yeah. Or who comes to help you at the very end, right? Like,
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, sort of along all
Ganondorf
those
helps
lines.
you in the end.
Yeah, it's weird.
Sort of along all those lines, Jack, do you want to talk about your game of the year?
Yeah, my game of the year is the game of the year, according to Tom Keeley. It's Baldur's Gate 3, which was the surprise hit of the year, I would think it's fair to say. I was not anticipating a Dungeons and Dragons. I wasn't expecting Baldur's Gate 3 to ever be made, let alone be successful, let alone be the game of the year. But I think it has really taken a hold of this larger cultural niche that D&D is carving out for itself again in the 2020s. And it really allows for a lot of interesting things. I think the story that they tell is very good from what I've seen of it so far. I admittedly haven't finished this one, but it's a lot longer.
Yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
And I just think it allows a more broad audience to get into this habit, which is a difficult hobby to get into for your first time. It requires, hundreds of dollars of books, at least 3 or 4 friends who are also interested in getting into it, one of whom needs to write or buy it and run a story. It is not the most accessible hobby. And I think putting it in a single player format where there is a pre-written story to be told is a really effective way to get more people into it. And I think they did it. Like, that's not even to get into the technical challenge of making a computer simulation of hundreds of specific rules and use cases and other details that they had to get right. So I think it's an amazing achievement that it happened and that it was so good and that people like it so much. I thought it deserved some recognition.
That's, I think, 100% fair. This is, I think, the game from the year that I am most bummed I haven't cracked into yet, and I am hoping to crack into.
Fred and I do it together. We got to make a party.
Well, listen, Fred and I have been talking a little bit behind the scenes. I think we're maybe going to try and do a series. I think we're maybe going to try and, I don't know who's going to be involved. I think it'll probably be me, Fred, Jack, Bruno, Sterling, but we'll find out as we go. But I think we're going to take a crack at Baldur's Gate 3 this year. I think we're gonna get into it. So, Deepak, we would happily invite you along if you want to roll, literally and figuratively roll those dice.
I haven't played
roll those dice, baby.
But yeah, that's where I'll leave that now. Is I'm excited to see what role Baldur's Gate 3 plays in the future of the website. For me, the game of the year was Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which has
been your game of the year.
Such a blast playing. I love Spider-Man. I love the mythos of Spider-Man. I love just the stories and the villains and the way that world fills out. I had so much fun playing the first game where the Sinister Six manifested. The Miles Morales game I thought was amazing. And so now this, the third game, naturally and obviously named Spider-Man 2, is I think even more of a blast. It brings out a lot of characters I really love. It makes homage to a lot of superhero stories I really love. Kraven's Last Hunt, the Black Suit Spider-Man story. Yeah, I had a blast playing Spider-Man 2. And the New Game Plus is not out yet, but I am ready to go on that one. So yeah, that
Does
for
the
me.
New Game Plus come with penis customization?
I hope so, but no.
I guess I know what the superior product is.
That's fair enough.
Are we talking about Peacock?
Hey now. All right. Let's move on to our final category of the year, which is best film.
Jeez, we're here already?
Yeah, did Bruno go?
Oh, did you not go for best game?
I did not.
Absolutely not.
Pardon me. I'm so sorry.
Passed right over it. He was like, this game's garbage anyway. It doesn't need to be talked about.
Well, listen.
I was the last picture in the sequence. I thought that I was the last one to go. Pardon me. No, please speak on it.
Listen, my side note. Riley, do you have the stream up, or are you just looking at Discord?
So here's what I have going.
Because you've been giving off some vibes that I'm getting into.
The circle.
He's on crack.
No, what I have going is in the corner, I have the video of all y'all, which switches between whoever spoke last and or the zoom out. And then constantly I have selected the image of whatever category we're talking about so that I kind of know which games we're going through, so that I can kind of check as we're going. All right, we did that one. All right, we did that one. All right, I'll throw it at this person next. So you guys are in 6 up in my bottom right, and then in the center of my screen is whichever category we're on. That's how I'm kind of conducting it.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the question was asked, so I just answered.
We all learned it from Invincible, just not along.
I didn't think it was an interesting question. I didn't ask it. Bruno, go ahead. Talk about Cyberpunk.
You didn't answer it interestingly either.
Well, there wasn't anything.
You didn't help at all.
I got you guys down here. I got the category over here. I don't know what else you want me to say about it.
Terrible.
So no,
Fuck off, you buddy.
my pick my pick was Cyberpunk 2077, and
Yes.
more specifically, version 2.0, which did come out in
Phantom
2023. Phantom Liberty. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, Phantom Pain is a Metal Gear Solid game.
But no, this was just like, it was everything that we were hoping to get a few years ago, and yeah, it's just like, I understand why it's not getting any awards this year because it didn't come out this year. But I think it deserves some recognition, especially because like now it's like in its very complete state and its very stable state. And yeah, Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, it's a shame that 2.0 came out now and not on release, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is exactly how Cyberpunk was supposed to be. It fixed so many different issues that I had with the original Cyberpunk. It's just a better game now, and
That's really, Fred.
I totally.
Shut the fuck up, Fred. It's good to hear you say that, because if I'm honest, I have heard a lot of people talking about 2.0, and if I'm honest, I have been thinking about it as 1.5. Like, I have been assuming they fucked up, and just
No.
like that they're pretending like it's great now, but it's not.
No, it's like,
so.
it's genuinely like
I'm excited to
almost
get
a
into
fully
it
different
once I
game.
get-
They have a
it's-
different skill system and everything.
it's different enough that you need a new save file. Like, you have to
Mhm.
start the game over.
Yeah, I'm stoked to get into it once I get a new GPU that can
And then
handle it. But
Just the last little bit of defense, because it did come out in 2020, and I have been playing it for 4 years. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 for longer because the early release was
That's a
out
fair
in
point.
2019.
yeah,
Was it really?
Yes.
hmm they've been working on it a long time, man. It's not an easy task.
And here we are now. And yeah, I mean, it's maybe we have two different examples here of how it can be done. Either you can be in pre-pro for forever and let a lot of people get their
Exactly.
hands on it, get a lot of
True.
feedback, or you can push and hope it works.
It didn't.
Which then,
Ron Howard voice. It didn't. Do we want to move on to?
It's our last
Best
one.
film?
Defensive front.
Yeah, I don't know what else we do,
All right.
but I appreciate you asking.
Wait, no, sorry. Because we talked about it, that it's not, that the AI did not put it on the list. I don't know if you wanted to include it or not, Riley.
Which one was it? Sorry.
Nerd Out?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
we did not do Best Nerd.
We'll do that one last.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that'll be a good place to end it. All right. We are going to now move on to perhaps our most prestigious 3D of the evening, and that is the award for Best Film. And Bruno, I so rudely tried to omit your entry from Best Game, so I feel like I want to give you the opportunity to start off here.
Oh, boy.
I have no idea which of these could possibly be your picks, but let's hear about it. Bruno, which of yours has the nomination for Best Film this year?
So I can hear the irony in your voice.
No.
because-
Hey.
Okay?
I'm behind you 100% on this.
No, I can hear
He's
the
not.
irony in your voice, at least on the part of you not expecting what my pick is.
Of not knowing
Well,
because-
which one it is.
I did specifically say when you hired me for this podcast that I would be shoehorning wrestling into it. And so my pick of best film this year is The Iron Claw. Speaking a little bit to how Jack was talking about Oppenheimer with the Trinity test earlier, any wrestling fan probably went into this with very worried expectations, just because any wrestling fan will know the entire story of this film like the back of their hand, and they'll know the tragedy they will be expecting from it. But wow, Sean Durkin and the entire cast just blew my expectations out of the water. I truly think everyone in the cast had a career best. If the movie wasn't released so late in the year, I would say Zac Efron would be at least getting a nomination for Best Actor. Holt McKillany as the patriarch of the Von Erich family emulated Fritz in such a way that like literally gave me chills sometimes in some of the scenes. And yeah, like another thing that like it was just so beautiful about it, like they followed a formula that we've already seen a lot in A24 films before. It's an A24 film. There's a formula that we've seen a lot in these films before where they have like very sudden but seamless genre changes, and you can see the same thing in The Iron Claw. Like the entire first half of the movie is just a very like heartwarming like sports family drama, and then literally like I checked the time slot, it was like right at like the hour point. It just completely hits a shift point, and it's so it's so great. But yeah, that's The Iron Claw for me. I don't know if there's anything else I have to say, but that's it. Yeah.
I wouldn't totally
Wrestling is,
discount Zac Efron getting an Oscar nomination because it's being talked about. It's just a very crowded field this year, so it depends if the movie kind of gathers steam.
I'm there as well, and not only would I say that, I also think that this movie sets Efron up for a movie star
New phase of his career
comeback that I am
the Pattinson phase of his career now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would.
I mean, he's been our play. Sorry, Bruno. I promise.
No, yeah, please go for it.
He's just been our like placeholder jokey guy for like the Roger Moore of Iron Man, right? And seeing him come into his own as like, this is how I want to define my career, and for this movie to be the starting point of that, I think it's very exciting for him. That's all I wanted to say. Bruno, please go ahead.
No, like just the last thing I want to say, like pretty much any awards show that has a best ensemble award, I would give it to the film, like easily.
Is it SAG nominated for best ensemble?
It is. I'm pretty sure it's nominated for best ensemble on SAG nomination. It's for the National Board Review. It did win best ensemble, and it was on their top 10.
Yeah, I keep my eyes on SAG. If it wins ensemble for SAG, I think Efron could really be in the conversation. Yeah, there are a lot of voters in that voting block. All right, let's move on to Deepak. Deepak, what was your nominee for best film of the year?
Our film boy,
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I saw this movie at midnight when it came out. And I'm kidding. My pick for best film is Past Lives, a movie that's also A24.
What a pick.
A movie that I did not really know much about until maybe 2 or 3 weeks before it came out. It was the last movie I saw in a theater before I left New York, moved out of New York, and it's a very New York-y movie. But more than that, it's there's been this new subgenre of movies about kind of multiverses and the way be different and things have gone a little differently. I think it comes with this whole sort of thing that our generation is going through because we've lived through so many traumatic, world-changing events that have like ruined our lives in a lot of ways and ruined the world that we live in, that we kind of can't help but wondering how things would be different. And this movie is very much in the vein of, you know, these two young kids who kind of have an affection for each other. The girl moves away to Canada and then to New York, gets married, has her own life, and the boy, who she has sort of kept in tenuous contact with over the years, decides to come to America to see her. And most of the movie is really just kind of a conversation between the two of them about what their lives could have been like had things gone differently. It's unbelievably romantic. It's really well written. More than anything, the way that it's made, it's so specific. It's so precise. The imagery, the sound, the music, the dialogue. It is one of the most precisely and perfectly constructed movies I've seen in a long, long time, probably since Tar, which I thought was the best movie of the year before. And this is less clinical, less cold. This is much more wearing its heart on its sleeve, much more sentimental and openly warm. And it's really a fantastic movie. I haven't seen everything so far this year, but I've seen a lot, and this was the best film of the year for me.
Can I ask you, Deepak, not in terms of Past Lives specifically, just you brought this up and kind of to speak to the year in cinema. How did you feel about Bradley Cooper's decision to omit the portion of Leonard Bernstein's career where he mentored Lydia Tarr?
It was an understandable decision given what the movie was kind of talking about. I think if you put Lydia in that movie, it becomes too much of a different movie. It becomes
a Tar picture. I mean,
yeah, and I just no. I mean, you have to keep the focus on Lenny, really.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Alice,
no,
too.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I
If you let Lydia in, it becomes a Tar movie. Now it's a Tar.
You have to trust his instincts, really.
Yeah. All right, Fred, what's your movie?
We talked about it a little bit already. My movie of the year, or my film of the year, sorry, was Oppenheimer.
Hey, now. Yes.
I think the thing that separates films from movies, right? I had a lot of fun.
Style.
I had a lot of fun watching Across the Universe Across the Spider-Verse.
Across the Universe.
Listen, a lot of people.
Sagan's
It's a loose F.
Hey,
We've been going for a while.
Bring it back.
I had a lot of fun watching a lot of movies. This one kind of made me think afterwards. I think that's the major difference, right? Like I remember just in the bar and I was pretty speechless, just like processing this movie.
Yeah.
We watched it with you, and I remember right after it ended, Rodney like leaned over and was like, "So what did you think?" I was like, "Give him a fucking minute." Having an existential crisis right now.
Well, if I may, I was thinking earlier this week, in 2013, I took Jackson to an all-night feature at the AMC. And what they were doing was, in anticipation of The Dark Knight Rises, they were showing, Batman Begins at like 6, and then Dark Knight, at 10 or whatever, and then Dark Knight Rises at midnight. Right? They had the whole thing figured out, so they could do the trilogy to lead up to the premiere, Deepak, as you say, in the fall of 2012. And summer. Was it the actual summer? I love it.
It must have been, because then I went to a swim meet and I remember talking about it.
But the whole gag of it for me was that we sat through we were getting ready for the movies to start, and probably like 5 minutes before they started, I found out Jack had never seen any of them, and I was like, first one's good, second one's great. And we watched the first one, and Jack looked over at me and was like, how is anything going to be better than that? And then the second one started, and like as soon as Heath comes out and is like like Jack leans over, he's like, oh, I get it. This guy. That's why it's better, is this guy's doing whatever he's up to. And I genuinely feel, Fred, like that's a little bit what was going on. Like, we have talked a lot this year about our discomfort in like assessing the Barbenheimer of it all, but I really do feel like there is a certain thing that is like $1 billion movie about how nukes are bad, right? Like, I guess that's what I was trying to get back to, was like, I'm sitting there and I'm watching the movie and I'm like, oh, this guy, this is why I made $1 billion.
Yeah, no, I always love what Nolan does with time too. Like, I know he can't tell a linear story to save his life.
Dude can't, yeah.
I don't mind it at all. I like it, actually. I think it's interesting.
I mean, I don't think a linear story would work in this one at all. The last hour would just be court hearings.
Not even, because
Begins jumps around a bunch.
So Begins jumps
Dark Knight
around.
and Rises, yeah, they're pretty
linear. I think Rises has flashbacks.
Because no one knew who he was until they put on the mask.
No, but in general, the Batman movies are Nolan being his most chronologically behaved, and I agree. I mean,
Insomnia. Insomnia also is pretty linear. Anyway.
Yes. I mean, even Memento is, depending on your reading of what's actually happening in that movie. But like, I mean, we talk about this with Nolan all the time. Like, it's not time; it's that he wants to find an interesting way to tell the story.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he doesn't just want to go, this is how it starts, this is the middle, this is the end. He wants to like be a little cock tease about it, which I get. That's his thing.
Yeah. No, Riley, you're correct. You're objectively right. It's also just difficult to say, I always like how he does the story of it all.
I always like how he teases me with the cock. No, I understand.
I like how he tells the stories non-linearly. I think it's fun.
Yeah. You like how he puts it in and then takes it out and makes you beg for it like a little bitch. I understand.
Oppenheimer.
Jack, what's your pick?
No, my picture of the year is Godzilla -1, and I'm going to talk about it now. This was a picture.
All that time forgetting that it was coming up again, and it was you the one that picked it.
Yeah, he picked it.
You probably thought it was movie, not film.
That's why I was coming up and getting mad.
It wasn't even that. It was just I forgot I picked it. Godzilla -1 is a hell of a picture. It is a listen. I was having a lot of fun with Fred 1 second ago, but there are two major movies out this year that both deal with sort of I would even almost say three, including what Jack's about to talk about, that all sort of deal with the ramifications of nuclear holocaust. And I think that Godzilla Minus One is the most
Fun.
metaphorically accessible Godzilla movie. Like, I would say at least most of the early Godzilla movies are all about the harms of nuclear war, right? And like the nature of being Japan and living with being the only country in the world that has had a nuclear bomb dropped on it. But they do eventually become movies about a big lizard fighting other big guys. And I think that Godzilla Minus One, the way it focuses on trauma, the way it focuses on the horrors of war, the way it focuses on like what, yeah, like survivor's guilt, right? And PTSD, like all that, it becomes something that is bigger than just the bomb. It becomes war itself. Like Godzilla becomes the psychological consequences of war. And I really feel like this was the first movie in the Godzilla franchise that I have seen that I feel like really redefined the monster for the modern era. And like that is, I feel like what I have been looking for in a long time, like for a long time, right? Is I like the early Godzilla movies. I think at a certain point the franchise kind of gets lost. I like the Western sort of like postmodern, let's just make it a big thing. But like I have been waiting, I feel like for a long time for the metaphor to make a comeback. And I think with Godzilla Minus One, like the heart is back in this movie. And
there's a big indictment of like a lot of Japanese culture here, this kind of idea of like honor and death, and how, you know, you don't have to die to be honorable, you don't have to die to be noble, you can have nobility and honor in life. Mm-hmm. I would push back a little bit. I think there was a little bit of a recontextualization of the metaphor in like the 2014 Godzilla, but this one is much more forceful in what it does.
Yes, I agree entirely.
It's a good movie, guys. Go see it.
Jackson, what you got?
Is it a good movie? I don't know.
It's a good film. It's
yeah.
the best film.
I picked The Boy and the Heron, which is another flick we've already talked about once in the best animation category, but I wanted to give it the top slot. I thought it deserved it. Because I'm not the Oscars. I think that we've talked about this movie several times now, so I'll try to lightning round it, but I think it is a wonderful capstone to an incredible career. I think it's highly autobiographical, and it deals with a lot of really interesting themes. I've only seen it once, and I feel like I definitely have to see it more than that to really speak super intelligently on it, but it talks about the importance of nonviolence and our personal roles in bringing that around. It talks about being an inspiration and what that means, which is something that I'm sure is on Miyazaki's mind. It deals with what it's like to be losing a family member and to want them back and to find them in unexpected places. I really think it is very powerful. And we've also, the voice cast, which I have talked already about how much I like animation and I always try to appreciate, is very good, including people like Robert Pattinson, who we are all an avid fan of, being a wacky little Birdman. It also features Christian Bale back in, who stars in my favorite Ghibli movie, coming back to do a deep-voiced dad. There's all sorts of stuff to love about it.
Is he in
but yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's... Pardon?
Which one was he in?
Christian Bale was Howl in Howl's Moving Castle, and he's the dad in this one. Yeah, I think it's, he's done sort of pacifist movies before. Like, I don't think any super open conflict happens in Spirited Away, for example. But this is the first time I think he's directly dealt with it as like a central theme. And it's obviously, he's spoken about it before. It's very important to him, and I think that shines through. And of course, it goes without saying that it's fucking gorgeous. And if you can see it in a theater, seeing it as big as possible is absolutely worthwhile, because this might be one of the last times you get to do that for the first time.
Uh,
I thought it was the boy and the heroine at first.
No. But that would be more in line with his usual stylings.
Mm-hmm.
I only think
Jack,
it's a boy because it is so autobiographical.
Did you see this in did you go subs or dubs?
I went dubbed, which is my usual preference. So I had
Right.
Rob doing his dirty bird work.
I mean, with this type of voice,
It's pretty
with this
good.
type of voice cast, I feel like you're gonna be fine with.
Yeah,
I've
I mean, I don't think
I've
it's a
done
huge
both,
deal
and I
as much
don't
as some
think
people do, but they definitely put the work in to make it a quality experience because they have the time and the money to do so, unlike a lot of anime.
Well, this is what I was going to say was I have done both, and as somebody who feels pretty well versed in the like Hio sphere,
Mhm.
I feel like this was a pretty elite dubbing. You know, like
Yeah, I think people knew how serious it was and treated it with the respect it needed. I definitely think they're both good.
I haven't seen this movie yet. Again, I've only seen the comments about Robert Pattinson, and it makes me want to watch it all the more.
Yeah, go check it out. It's crazy.
Having seen both the versions, I really feel like and I think there are a lot of people like this in the cast. I think Batista falls into this category for sure. I think there are several others, but actors who feel like they signed on to this project to preserve the vocal energy of the Japanese performance. And I think Pattinson above all, like feels like he is signed on because he was like, I'm gonna do the crazy thing that Japanese dude was doing, and I'm just gonna do it in English. And
The Japanese actor who did the Heron is Masaki Suda, who is, I believe, pretty well known in the Nippon.
yeah. So and there have been a lot of interviews, like with Hayo, for example, talking about how he feels so bad about what he put that guy through, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I it's been interesting and fun, and I want to learn more. I want to see it do more. So hop on our website, NIHF.com. Scroll down a little bit if you're just listening to this on your podcatcher. Go ahead and vote this category and all the others. Here's the final category, and perhaps the only one.
We got two more.
Biggest
Biggest news story of the year.
Pardon me, Fred. You're absolutely right.
Did we not do Story of the Year?
No,
We
we
did not.
skipped over that to save it for later because we wanted to say that the biggest news story of the year is one of the most important things of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go ahead and start with Deepak.
My biggest story of the year. Sorry, I have to pull up my document. My most. Okay, can you read me again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and talk about best news story of the year, and we're going to start with Deepak.
This is. Oh, sorry again. This is the best news story of the year we just had, not the coming year. No.
Biggest news story of the year.
Okay. Yeah, my
man.
biggest news story of the year was the joint SAG-AFTRA and WGA strike. I don't really think there was anything bigger than that this year. It kind of infiltrated everything. You know, we were just coming out of COVID and the pandemic and kind of a slow roll of releases and things like that. And then we got hit with this, which really moved a lot of things for the back half of 2023 and a lot of 2024, even further down the pipeline as far as when we're going to get them. But more importantly, there's all the stuff about AI and the studios kind of taking advantage of the lower tier actors, extras, things like that. Writers got a pretty good deal. The actors, I'm not 100% sure they really got everything they should have gotten, but it's a 3-year deal if I recall correctly. So we'll be back at the table sooner than we know. So, but that, I mean, I don't know that any other story really dominated the entertainment sphere as much as that did.
That was I think the biggest disappointment of the whole thing is how quickly we are going to find ourselves back in this position.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Fred, what you got?
So Deepak mentioned this a little bit earlier as the biggest disappointment, but I thought the downfall of the MCU and just how poorly those movies did this year was hugely important. These are movies that used to make billions of dollars hand over fist. I had heard the phrase "endgame" used as just a way to measure large amounts of money. I don't know if you know what
People are using it.
That is happening, folks.
So, but these movies dominated film space for 10 years, and they
Now
just
they're not.
flopped this year. And the most influential movies all of a sudden not being influential, I think, is a weird sign of the times. I don't know where movies will go from here. I'm hoping Barbenheimer was kind of a push in the direction of more artistically sound movies, but we'll see. I think something is changing, and I think that the fall of the MCU is a good indicator that tastes have changed.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, Fred, do you think that the future of the MCU is that it sort of keeps pushing these big, clearly unsustainable blockbuster movies until it sort of putters out and fails? Or do you think that they will be able to sort of make the transition to middling ass, like middle budget pictures?
I think they're going middle budget.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll see.
That would be nice.
Jackson?
Yeah. So I took in 2023, we saw the public release of the generative pre-trained transformer model number 4, colloquially known as GPT-4. Sort of similarly, I think AI was a very dominant conversation piece in the culture writ large. As someone who, just because of what I was studying at the time, was aware of generative pre-trained transformer model number 1 when it came out in 2018, and was stunned that it could remember information across a paragraph. We have certainly come far, and it's not, I don't want to sit here and be like, called it, but watching like the general populace become more and more aware of this technology up until it exploded with the release of this model was very interesting. And suddenly everyone has all sorts of opinions on it. And I don't think they're unfounded. But I do think that we are more fortunate than many people give credit for that OpenAI, a company that is quite open with what they are doing and how they are doing it, is the one who is largely leading the technological charge in this way. I think there are much worse people and companies, or much less favorable people and companies, both domestic and abroad, who are very interested in this technology also now. So, I'm not in love with everything about it, but I think they're trying to produce this in a safe and reasonably secure way. So, in general, I'm in favor of it, I think, as long as it continues to be used safely, and as long as people like SAG-AFTRA and the WGA keep standing up for their rights as people, which this is not. But until, as it continues to progress, and it will, I think setting these standards up is an important thing to do, and I'm glad people are starting to actually pay attention to it, because as we keep saying here, this is the worst this technology is ever going to be.
Right. It's only going to get better from here. Jackson, do you think that we've talked a lot around the strikes this episode. Do you think that the guilds are adequately set up at this point to be working again? As someone whose emphasis is more on the tech end of it, like, I guess, do you think the tech is going to advance faster than the contracts?
I think the hardest part for any legal discussion is setting a precedent. So I think that establishing this first version of it, which involves so many things like defining terms and like what does it mean for something to even be an AI model, and when does it start encroaching on these jobs and all of this stuff, was probably the most difficult part of these negotiations. Not that I know. But I would like to think that now that there is like a starting point to talk about this sort of stuff, that we will be better equipped to handle it going forward. However, in general, I don't know that I would say anyone is prepared for where this technology is going.
For sure. Bruno?
Yeah, so my story of the year was I sort of worded it as Mario and Last of Us breaks through. And basically what I mean by
not
that,
Lou Albano. That makes way more sense.
I
I
did
just thought he was abbreviating Luigi.
I did tweak it later so that there were dots to make it an acronym. But I mean, it wasn't until this year that we really started actually believing in video game adaptations and started realizing, hey, maybe studios do know how to do this, and maybe they have figured something out. And like that goes in two very different directions when you look at Last of Us and Mario, because it's two very different medias. In one, they just followed the story like word for word how it goes in the game, whereas the other, like, there wasn't really a story to go off of in the first place, so they just took a smorgasbord of everything that makes up that character, and both worked like beautifully. And then and it just mostly a lot of people credit Mario, but I do have to credit both shows in that it just like allowed a lot of people to like look at this genre and see there's something that they can be explored here.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that.
I also had this realization kind of recently of like just how much stuff has come out now between like Detective Pikachu and the Sonic movies and the Mario movie and The Last of Us, and it does feel like they're figuring something out.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Jack, I think the big thing they're figuring out, and a little bit this was lampooned in the Rescue Rangers movie that we talked about last year, right? But it feels like the thing they are figuring out is to be confident in the actual IP itself, right? Like, how many times have
Don't
we
overthink it?
Right. How many times have we touched on that joke from the original X-Men movie about Wolverine opening the costume box and it's black tactical leather, and they make a joke about, were you expecting yellow and blue spandex, right? And like, yes, we were.
Actually, yeah.
and over such and such a period of time, we've reached a point where studios are no longer scared to just like do the thing. And I think that they are starting to see the benefits of that, right? Like, I think that's
Well,
like
part of it was, I think back then it was about crossing over to a general audience. This stuff was seen as niche and nerdy, and we want to make it cool for everyone. And now that it's cool for everyone, we can just do the damn thing.
100%, right? They are capitalizing on a nostalgia of people who are, you know, like Fred Deepak and I, right? Folks in their early 30s who are now like having kids and getting older and being like, well, maybe my kid would be into Mario, right? Like that's the whole bit, and they are operating it very cleanly. But I do think a part of it, kind of to your point, Bruno, is that they are like no longer scared of doing it. They'll just do it. Right. And I think that's working really well. It used to be that they had to like apologize for making a Superman movie while they were making a Superman movie. And now they can just be like, there he is. He's got his underpants on the outside. Weird, right? So my nominee for biggest news story of the year was that it seems like we are finally reaching streaming consolidation. You know, we have, as an organization, been tracking the streaming wars pretty closely over the years. And it seems like, you know, we have finally begun the great consolidation. Yet there have been talks that Netflix is going to take on ESPN. There have been discussions about Paramount Plus ending up in somebody else's neck of the woods. Amazon.
No one knows who.
Seems like they might be.
You know, just the signs are all pointing towards that we have perhaps reached a tipping point in the what do you call it there? The pendulum might be swinging back the other way now. Finally, so maybe I'm ahead of the curve. And hey, if you think I'm overly prescient, please feel free to not vote for me. But that's my nominee. Is I feel like we're breaking down the streamers finally.
Mm-hmm.
All right, are we all ready for Fred? Fred, do you give the final thumbs up?
Yeah, these are all the categories.
I do think we've gotten them all now.
All right.
Told you, I'm managing the generals. They're all
The generals are managed.
ducks in a row.
This brings us to our nominations for Best Nerd Out Episode of the Year.
How many award shows give themselves awards? Stupid. This
Yeah.
one.
This is straight from us to you. These are 5 episodes that if you think, do I want to check out the Nerd Out? These ones. Listen to these ones. Watch these ones. See if you like these. And if you do, $5 a month is not that much. Come on, who cares?
Mhm.
Also, one of us will win an actual pretend trophy. And we are going to start with Fred.
Yep. My favorite nerd out of the year, consequently, is Riley's least favorite nerd out of the year. It is the award's going to go to Deepak and I just absolutely massacring this one chip challenge while answering Oscar questions.
That was this year. Holy shit.
It was the beginning of the year. Yeah.
Wow.
Jack made up this absolute gauntlet of Oscar questions that I didn't know how to answer any of them. Actually, I was completely unaware of the answers to these questions while eating the spiciest chip that later got recalled because people died.
People.
Yeah,
This is a spicy chip.
which happened after we recorded the episode. This was not knowledge we had going into it.
It almost killed Riley.
We still would have done it.
Almost-
I wasn't here for this
But-
at all. I need to go back and listen
Yeah,
to
this
this.
was pre-Bruno.
this
that
was-
Bruno, it's a gem.
This
Bruno
was
wouldn't
You'll never look at Riley the same way again.
this was an absolute blast to record.
How much of
Um,
me vomiting made it onto the final?
I don't think they
Not
recorded
enough.
that. I think you just like
Well, yeah, you left the room, but I was there by myself for a while.
No, I do think Maggie briefly
Had to come and be
on the
like,
recording.
he's
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
He's
Riley's
not
wife
coming
jumped
back.
in, said, "Hi, boys," but we're cutting it.
He's not coming back. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
spicy chip. Definitely check that one out. I didn't realize that was this year.
Yeah, you
All
said it for right before the Oscars.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Feedback?
Mine were there's recency bias here, but the 2-part Hallmark AI
yeah.
versus
They were a good one.
That was
is
good.
it a book or a movie game that Riley foisted upon us over the course of 2 splendid nights in the recent past. If you don't like those shows, you probably just don't like what we have to offer.
You're not into what we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just don't think you're on our wavelength. Your lights have been
Um,
flickering for a while there, buddy.
Jen,
Did Riley just lose power?
I believe I have lost power. Let's
Be quick about this.
get
No, your
through this
internet's
while
working.
we get-
Your
let's
internet's working.
Make hay as the sun. Yeah, I have
Yeah,
one
that's
of those
true.
Verizon big boys, but
Oh,
All right, yeah.
let's make hay
just-
while the sun shines. My favorite nerd
Look
out
up behind you.
episode. Ah! My favorite nerd out episode we did this year, I think, was did we talk about? I think it was because I don't have Spotify, unfortunately. I'm one of those social pariahs that depends on my Apple end of year music review, which does not allow me to share it on social media in any kind of charming way.
Lest I be
But,
scarlet
right.
lettered.
Right, precisely. But I was reminded at the end of the year by way of that playlist that we did visit Robert Downey Jr.'s adult contemporary
You
album.
did do that.
I was thinking about
his
that recently.
jazz album.
I was also
A
thinking
lot of
about
those-
that
A
recently.
lot of those tracks showed up on my end of year playlist. So I'm gonna have to throw out the time. Hey, I'm gonna have to throw. Oh,
Hey!
I'm gonna have to throw out the time we talked about The Futurist as just an episode that particularly tickled me. All right, Jackson, what do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. My personal favorite Nerd Out of the Year was one that inspired a series that we are currently doing over on the YouTube, where I bring Riley through Avatar: The Last Airbender. But earlier in the year, we watched through Dracula.
Yeah.
Dracula, the
Dracula,
Spanish
yeah.
version, as I recall, which was very interesting. There was a lot of
Hungarian.
interesting trivia and information about both of those movies that I wasn't super aware of going in. So that was a lot of fun for me. got to hang out with you. We got to commentate. And if that's the sort of thing you like, you should come over to the YouTube and maybe watch Riley watch Avatar. But that's all I'll say on the matter.
Well, and
I gave Riley a lot of shit for making us do that, but then it inspired me to go get the book and reread it. So
hell
Is
yeah.
that Bram Stoker's one, or is that a different?
yeah, Bram Stoker.
Very nice.
I just wanted to call out that adding on to what Jack just said, no matter what version of our content you like, the entire purpose of us having like we were joking about giving ourselves an award. The entire purpose of this is to give you the opportunity to vote on which of these 5 very different types of episodes was your favorite, so we can do more of the stuff you like. So if you're voting on any of these, and again, this is at the end because it's for the real ones. So if you're watching / listening to this, please at least vote for this award just so we know what of
you
the
want.
stuff we did this
We
year
can give
you
you
were
more of
into.
it.
And Bruno, well, let's go ahead and wrap up with you, my guy.
So my nerd out of the year was probably one of my favorite ones to just do like some pre-production work on. It was Deepak's Fantasy Draft, and
Oh, yeah.
I would just
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that this is the first time that we are using the words fantasy draft, and I'm very disappointed in all of us. But regardless, that was a very great nerd out.
It is a good joke.
That was fun.
Yeah,
I
That
found
was
the
the
pictures
that was
for
the
that
first time
recently,
my
and I was
son
like,
came on podcast. Was
It was. I
Well,
was thinking about that the other day when the young man showed up in the hat. He was ready to go. He had a little clipboard.
Yeah, he was my quant.
And then I
This
think it
is-
was Deepak that chose the Flash, and he immediately left.
Oh, we had we had talked about that ahead of time. We knew that Flash was going first round. We hoped it would be us that picked him. But I was like, as soon as Deepak picks the Flash, you throw down that and you storm out. And he was like, all right.
Oh, funny.
That's so
And he
funny.
crushed it. He crushed it. This has been a big year for us, and if you're listening to this or you're watching this right now, thanks for being a part of it.
Mhm.
We are going to get more standardized as the new year goes on, but as we're just sort of here, kind of freestyling it. Genuinely, thank you so much for watching and listening. We have been doing this for a goofy ass long time, and we've grown out the company, and we're going into a new year, and we've had a lot of meetings and shit, and we're very appreciative, and we love that you enjoy what we do. If you enjoy what we do, we hope you will subscribe either to the website or the YouTube channel, NIHF.com or YouTube.com/NIHF if you're not into the whole brevity thing. You can also follow us on social media at Nerdy Here First on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok. We're on Facebook and X as well, but TBD how long those last.
help Riley afford electricity.
Yeah, look, my power's going out because
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not because of a storm. He just didn't pay the bill.
Listen, this isn't the month to be joking about me not paying my bills. Please do remember to let your friends know about what we do, and if you like what we do, remember for $5 a month you can get 2 episodes per week by subscribing to the Nerd Out, a deep dive on dorky diatribes. We're entering into 2024 here with a bigger head of steam than ever, and I would just, with that in mind, like to encourage you to tune in next week to hear.